It is 7:04 p.m. I'm going to call the Town of Bay Harbor Islands Town Council meeting to order. If everyone could rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Rodriguez, you have the honor tonight. Come on down.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Yaffe?
I'm here.
Councilmember Cochet?
Here.
Councilmember Sauber?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember Fuller?
Here.
Vice Mayor Bruder?
Here.
Mayor Leonard?
Here.
All present?
All right. First, we're going to take a moment to pause. For many of you that already know, on tonight's agenda, we're appointing someone new to the Planning and Zoning Board because Tom Telesco resigned due to, unfortunately, he was ill, and unfortunately, he succumbed to cancer on Friday evening. And I'd like, I'm sorry?
Saturday.
Oh, it was Saturday evening. I'd like to just take a moment to pause and remember him. So if we could just have a moment of silence for Tom Telesco. All right, thank you. Tom served on our Planning and Zoning Board from 2013 until he resigned, actually in June. And in a few moments, we're going to be acknowledging some of our individuals that were serving during 9/11. And I think it's important just to take a moment to acknowledge that while not everyone serves in the military or law enforcement or as first responders, those individuals that do volunteer on our boards and on council and any other type of volunteer capacity, that they do give. And for Tom's sake, those were many nights and hours that took away, obviously, from his wife and his family. And now that he's passed, we really do appreciate his service to our community because he did so giving it for just because he loved our town. So that's something to mention. That being said, we have some great special presentations. The first is Dr. Rodriguez. We're going to come on up. Get to come up again. See, now you're not the principal. You can... There you go.
We miss you. I miss you guys too, trust me. I miss my Bobcat, but we always say once a Bobcat, always a Bobcat. So there we go.
We hear that one.
Yeah.
Now I'm just riding a high tide, so, it's a little...
Now you're a high tide.
I'm a high tide.
What's up with that? Well, don't worry, I'm a high tide too, so it's okay. So we have some high tides on this council. So I have to admit, it's funny, gosh, you were with Bay Harbor with 10 years?
I was actually at Bay Harbor for
15 years. And keep in mind, Bay Harbor's been an A-rated school for 18 years. So 15 out of 18 years is on you. And that's truly an incredible achievement. It really is. And for those 15 years, I have to admit, there's really nothing we can say, but thank you, because there's no gift greater than just teaching our kids. I mean, it really is incredible what you've done. And certainly having an A-rated school. And this year, the best middle school in the county. We are the highest rated school in Miami-Dade County.
That's right.
But you steered that ship in the right direction for 15 years. And as a small token of our appreciation, thank you very much. This is for you.
Thank you very much.
And you're not going to get out so soon. We're going to take a picture, and then I want you to say a few words, please.
Mayor, the proclamation also.
Okay.
Yeah. So, there we go. Oh, sure. The proclamation. Today's your day.
Today's my day. All right, there we go.
Yeah, 2 for 1. And on 3, 1, 2, 3, one more. Very nice.
Here, you get 2, and please, and on top of that, please say a few words. Sure. Here you go.
I have to tell you, as I stand here in front of you, I want to thank the council. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank all of you who have served as mayor, vice mayor over all the years that I've been here, because I've been here for a very long time. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank all my Bobcats, my regent who's sitting there, our new principal at Bay Harbor, Mr. Saperstein, Mr. Bloomstein representing Dr. Karp's office and the district. I really want to thank you, and this is very humbling to me because when I first came over to Bay Harbor, I didn't even know where Bay Harbor was. I came from Liberty City all the way to Bay Harbor. And when I got here, it was like a huge culture shock. Like, where am I? What is this? I have to tell you, for me, it's been an honor to serve our children for the years that I've been able to do that. I love, with all my heart, doing what I do. I love our students, and I love helping our families, and really feeling as though every child is given what they need to move on to the next level. And for me, it's service. I always tell everyone education is not a career. Education is like a vocation. You choose it, you pick it, you work with passion, and you get it done. And it has been an honor to serve you all these years. I miss my Bobcats immensely, but now I have my big Bobcats who are now high tides. So the great thing was when I transitioned into beach, as I walked around all summer long, I had kids coming in, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here, Dr. Rodriguez, who, excited for me to be there, which, I thought my 8th graders going to 9th graders weren't going to be so excited. They're like, we just got rid of you, go away. It felt welcoming. I was 2 years at Biscayne Elementary Community School, and my students that were there with me when I was the principal there are now 11th and 12th graders. So I have the 11th and 12th grade Tigers from Biscayne, and then I have all of our Bay Harbor students. So really, it's been kind of like extending one step further. Not really leaving home, just kind of like going to college. That's what it feels like. But I'm able to serve in that capacity as well. So I thank you very much for trusting me for all the years that you did. And for this honor, it's an honor, so thank you.
Briefly, we have, there he is. Come on. Mr. Saperstein, come on. For those of you that don't know, we have a new principal. I'm sure many of the parents know. So if you want to take a moment and just say hi, I'm sure there's probably a few people.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor for inviting me tonight and the council for inviting me. Thank you so much. She's a tough act to follow in many ways. I can only hope to replicate what she's done over the last 15 years. She's a wonderful individual, fantastic educator. So, a little bit about me. I came from Highland Oaks Elementary School. I was the principal there for 4 years. Had 4 successful years there. And I'm pinching myself again. I was lucky enough to come to a wonderful community, such as my old community where I live now in Highland Lakes. And it has the same level of commitment from the parents, the school board member, district. The teachers are phenomenal. The staff is terrific. So, again, I'm pinching myself to even be at Bay Harbor and look forward to the many years to come. Thank you so much.
As long as you get that A this year, we'll be okay. No pressure. Number 19. We have another special presentation. For those of you that don't remember, last month, because of the hurricane, our council meeting was supposed to be on September 11th. And we thought it was probably about time that we gave a special recognition to those individuals that worked for us that were there during that tragic day. For those of you that don't know, our town manager was with NYPD for over 20 years and was in charge of ESU, which is the Emergency Services Unit, on 9/11. And, it's interesting because I'm a history buff. I have a degree in history. And, and you look back at all the times that we've had attacks on our country, back from the Revolutionary War where we fought for our independence, the War of 1812 when they burned down, Washington, including the White House, and then you look Pearl Harbor, and you think about all those horrible and tragic times. My generation, what we remember is where were you on 9/11? My parents' generation, it was where were you when Kennedy was shot. My grandparents, it was where were you on Pearl Harbor Day. So for my generation, it's always been, and always will be 9/11. And, it's been 10 years that Ron's been with us. It's really been a pleasure working with Ron. But let's just not forget that Ron brought over a few other individuals that were also there and heroically worked through that horrible day and the weeks and months after that. And we're lucky enough to have 4 individuals that were 9/11 first responders that work for our town. Now, when you have about 50 people that work for you, that's a significant number. We probably have more 9/11 survivors working for us per capita for our employees than probably any other municipality in the state. I take the challenge on that. And because of last month, unfortunately, we had the hurricane, we wanted to do something very special because the council meeting was on 9/11. So we have these plaques, and we just want to recognize those individuals that really, we never do forget. So, Ron, this is for you. Come on. Where'd he go?
Right there.
Where is he?
All of them are right there.
There, come on up.
Mike,
Come on up.
Jamie,
Yep.
Patrick.
Patrick. All these individuals, so it's really striking. All these individuals were there, and all these individuals worked there at the Twin Towers, and it's really great to have all you guys here. It's really great. Thank you so much. But I really want to tell you that the entire town appreciates what you guys do. It really is great. I mean, I know that Patrick's had a few positions. Some of these guys, you don't realize what they've done for, 10, 20-plus years before they got here. And you don't realize how blessed we are to have a town where we have people that have so much experience that brings to our daily lives, not only to make our family safe, but also just run the town. So it really is a blessing. So thank you, Ron. Thank you, guys. Please say a few words.
I'm really, I know the guys standing next to me weren't expecting this, and honestly, I wasn't either. I really appreciate it. That day was something we really don't talk about too much, but it's something we always remember. 14 members of our unit were killed that day. When the buildings went down, they were up in the buildings trying to evacuate people. The thing that we take away that, we're cops and we're expected to do that kind of work and be ready to sacrifice. I always talk about the people that were there who weren't cops. There was many people, just like in the audience here, they would just work, going to work that day, that were right next to us, disregarding their own safety, disregarding, their own lives, just to help each other, help us, and help whoever they could pull out or get away from the scene. It's really not much more I can really say about that. I truly appreciate it. Would you like to say anything?
And you were there for a hurricane. Oh, 9/11.
This is certainly a great honor. Certainly, I didn't expect it at all. All I can tell you is that we're all a little older, but we are just as determined and just as honored and just as privileged as we were to serve back then as we are now. We've had an opportunity to distinguish ourselves for the latest event, which was, of course, the hurricane. So we did it before, and of course we're doing it now. And it's my privilege to be an employee of town of Bay Harbor Islands and to work for Ronald Watson. Thank you.
We want to hear from Officer Murphy. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It really was a surprise. I thought I had to fill in for the chief tonight. But, it was a surprise, and it's very nice, and I'm very proud to work for Bay Harbor Islands. We really enjoy our jobs, and we couldn't be working in a better place with a better town manager. Ronnie is a very, very loyal, I shouldn't even say employee, that's not giving him enough of credit, but we all know about Ron, and we're very proud of him.
if we can all, guys, we're going to take a picture of the whole council, if we can just come up in one big picture.
That's very nice. Very
I know
nice.
a little bit.
I only have one.
Just only got one left.
Where you at? Come on, Albert.
You look this way on 3. 1, 2, and 3. Again. 6 smiles. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Great.
Who pulled that sneaky one up there? You, Dicey.
All right, we have one more special presentation. Just so you know, there's some parents here that are here for an agenda item for number 18. So just so you know, what we're doing is, we have one more presentation from the school board in regards to the new building, and then we're going to do the manager's report, council report, and then after that, then we're going to do number 18. So just so you know, that's where we are on the agenda.
Honestly,
Will I get to
Jordan,
18 first?
I think not only do we get 18 first, I think we should discuss 18 while we have the representatives from the school board here.
Well, they're not leaving. No, they're not. They're going to stay.
I know, nor do I want to make, torture them through the, through our meeting.
Well,
But I think, two things.
let's bring 18 to the front. Okay, let's do 18 first, and then if you want to stay, what we can do is we'll do the new school building if you want to stay and listen to that. So we'll do 18 first. So, all right. So 18. Who do we have first? Okay.
Well, why don't we
Well,
discuss,
well,
why don't we
actually,
just,
we have to call the agenda item first. So.
okay.
At the request of the Town Council, Miami-Dade School Board representatives will be speaking about the new addition to Ruth K. Broad Elementary.
No, 18.
Oh, I'm sorry, 18. Discussion requested by Mayor Leonard and Vice Mayor Bruder with regard to...
No, we asked 18. Yeah.
Why don't they make a presentation first about this?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
And then you guys
yeah.
objected.
And 18.
So you want to do 3 first?
That's what I thought.
All right, so we'll do 3 first, and then we'll do 18.
Okay.
All right, so back to 3.
Back to
All right.
No.
All right, come on up. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council, Mr. Manager. First of all, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to make a presentation to you on the proposed new addition at Bay Harbor K-8. We've given you a copy of some slides, and what we'd like to do is just take you through them very briefly. We also have 2 presentation boards, which are full color, and
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we need your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Anna Rijo-Conde, Deputy Chief Facilities Officer with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, address 1450 Northeast 2nd Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33132. So if I could call, I was mentioning that we have 2 large presentation boards, which we're happy to leave here for you to review at your leisure, and then afterwards we will probably have them taken to the school so that the parents who come to the school can actually see the elevation and some of the details firsthand. So basically, the new proposed addition, when locating it on the site, will look for opportunities to basically minimally disrupt the existing campus, to basically create an environment where you were basically surrounding the field, which was recently just done and still has 25% to be completed, optimizing the building orientation, capturing the natural light as much as possible, and maximizing the views for the students and for the faculty. If you turn to the next slide, the project information provides some details on both the budget, the number of student stations. So the total project budget, which includes both soft and hard costs, is approximately $9 million. It's fully funded in the 5-year capital plan that the board approved this year. The project provides for about 400 student stations, just short of 400 student stations, within approximately 24,000 square feet, and that doesn't include the ground level, which is where we'll have the basketball courts, which will be covered, and we have a picture of that, so you can visualize what that's going to look like. The project architect is Guri Matute. They were commissioned by the board back in 2016. The school is designed to meet U.S. Green Building Council LEED for schools. That's a rating system that's used to basically ensure that new buildings meet some level of sustainability and local sourcing. The project consists generally of the covered basketball facility on the ground floor, which will have a 20-foot clearance so that both adults and children can play inside or within it. There's 2 stories of classroom space above the basketball facility, 16 classroom spaces to be exact. There will be a large collaboration space. I don't know if you've been to the iPrep downtown, but basically it's made up of all the collaboration spaces where children can come together with teachers and basically work in a more collaborative fashion. So it's a little, it's not as traditional as your traditional classroom setting. So that will be a very nice space in this new building. There will also be obviously some restrooms, administrative space, storage space, etc. If you turn to the next slide, we listed for you some of the sustainable elements that have been incorporated into the building. I know that the town is very pro-sustainability, and so these are important elements that we have been able to incorporate. So the building is going to have high-efficiency LED lighting throughout, low-flow plumbing fixtures, high-efficiency air conditioning with a management system so that you can control the temperature at the right times, energy-efficient windows, solar shading, environmentally friendly flooring throughout the facility, both in terms of linoleum as well as carpet tiles. The low VOC paints, highly reflectant Energy Star roofing. No sprinkler system needed because we're going to be using xeriscape landscaping so that it minimizes the amount of water that's needed to maintain that landscaping. If you look at the next slide, which is on slide 5, it gives you sort of a snapshot of what the ground floor would look like, and that's the covered basketball facility. It will have 1 full-size court with 2 half courts. It will have bleachers. We talked about the possibility of having retractable backboards, but we have not been able yet to actually identify backboards that would be retractable and also resilient to sea air and all that goes along with it. So there may be some additional tweaks that we make to the actual basketball backboards and the poles, but for now we do have the bleachers. We have the 3 courts, 1 full size and 2 half courts.
One more thing about the basketball court. We also can play volleyball. We have the ability to change it from a basketball court to be able to use it for other things besides basketball.
Well, the space is, the space is fairly flexible, so we can certainly take a look at that, and I don't know if there's some adaptation that we would have to make, but we're early enough that we can actually look at that.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can also, so besides basketball, because I know that the after-school programs have volleyball, so that maybe that we can use it as besides basketball, we can also change the, put the things in for the, to be able to do volleyball. Other sports in there also, especially conducive to the rain.
Okay, sure. We will definitely look at that. On the next slide, it basically just gives you a view through what the proposed basketball court would look like. Again, high ceilings, 20-foot high ceilings. The standards, the boards on a pole. We will have a scoreboard that's electronic, and we'll have bleachers. So it will be fully fitted. The next slide shows you the other floors, the floors above the basketball courts. Basically 2 floors of classrooms primarily, with all the ancillary facilities, and I've already described how many classrooms we're putting in and the collaboration space, etc. If you turn to slide 8, we have an elevation or a rendering of the building, and we have a board here that, if Mr. Alonso wouldn't mind, and I apologize, I neglected to introduce some of my colleagues. Mr. Alonso is the administrative director in charge of design, in design and sustainability. We have Mr. Mike Levine, who is executive director in charge of leases and acquisitions. Of course, Mr. Bloomstein, who is the aide to Dr. Karp. I'm sure I'm going to be punished tomorrow because I neglected to do this today. We have Ms. Mendes-Cartaya, who's in charge of intergovernmental affairs. And then we have the two individuals over there, Mr. Bueno, who is the region superintendent for North Region, and Ms. Sally Allion, who is region director. And of course, you know the principal of Bay Harbor K-8, and I think I've covered everybody.
And Dr. Rodriguez.
And Dr. Rodriguez, of course.
And Mr. Saperstein.
Yes, of course.
There you go.
So that's, again, we're going to leave the board here for your perusal at your convenience. And then we also have another board that basically shows the view through the basketball facility. So it's a little larger than what you have in your slides, so it might be a better thing to show the parents and to get excited about.
We have it. Face it out that way.
To the audience, please.
Yeah.
In terms of project schedule, design has been completed, has been fully approved by our building official. It's going out to bid this month. We are expecting to receive bids in December, and we are planning to take this to the board, the award to the board, by or before the February meeting, and project completion would be for 2019 occupancy.
When in 2019?
Right now, yes, definitely for the start of the school year, but possibly before. What happens is sometimes when we open a facility in March, it doesn't really, you can move the children in, but, it's only for that 3-month period. So if it's there in March and it's available and the children if the principal wants to move them, by all means, but certainly for August it will be completely done.
I also want to put in the record that the GIVE donation, because many people have asked us, the GIVE donation is being used as also to fund the basketball courts. So the money that was raised during our campaign a couple years ago is also many years ago. That money is being used to help facilitate, the basketball courts. So that's where that money, in case anybody wants to know, that's where that money is going.
Yeah, I just gotta put it on the record, because when we first heard about this addition, Dr. Rodriguez was principal, and we've spoken many times, and now it's coming to fruition. I have to tell you, my biggest concern is that the purpose of the building is to alleviate the overcrowding with the double classrooms. That's my understanding. So first and foremost, those double classrooms, that we're not going to see the double classrooms. We're going to have a normal amount of kids in a normal classroom and no more doubles. My fear is that having an additional building and having more classrooms and a greater capacity for kids does the opposite effect. So instead of it, whereas maybe at one point in time it's alleviating the overcrowding with the double classrooms, we put ourselves in a position where now even more kids can go to the school, which would create a bigger problem. And, and I'm not saying that this is something that you would be able to tell us right now, but that's my concern. And I'm sure a lot of parents have the same concern. That, you wake up 5, 6, 7 years from now, and all of a sudden we have a lot more double classrooms. We have a nice new building with a lot of extra kids in it. And we know that a lot of the kids are not necessarily the Bay Harbor residents. And obviously that's a deepening issue. So.
Well, I could, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, do you have more in the presentation, or is that?
No, I just wanted to validate the fact that the compelling reason for actually building this building is to provide for a decent classroom for every class.
No, we know that.
And not to bring in more overcrowding. So I think it's value added for the campus. It brings in a lot of great new spaces, great new classrooms, which is what the school needs. I think that the issue that you're raising is certainly a valid concern, but that's something we could perhaps work on a different track with the region and see how we might be able to assuage some of your concerns by working on, verification, or, I know you've mentioned a couple of things when we had the conversation last week.
Yeah.
But we still think it's a great project.
Yeah.
I have more of a, I very much appreciate your presentation. It looks like a great facility, but from a procedural standpoint, when I was, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I recall being with the town manager and school board officials perhaps years ago when I was the mayor, in the conference room across the hallway, and this was years ago, and we looked at plans for this new school facility, and we were pretty excited about it, and we had some understanding that maybe, work would start within the following year. And then a year or two ago, was it 2 years, Ron? We had a ceremonial groundbreaking outside at the school, and the school board members were there, and so again, it was sort of exciting, but here we are a couple of years later again, and I appreciate the fact that this is finally going to get started, but why is it that it takes the board, 4 or 5 years from the time you first start talking about a project to actually get into construction? Particularly when we were led to believe 3, 4, 5 years ago that it was, it was imminent.
But to the mayor, we've had several events at the school, but not necessarily for the groundbreaking for the facility for this edition. It's been for the field, the playground, and so forth.
There was a groundbreaking, I thought, for this, wasn't it, Ron, for this facility? It was a groundbreaking
Not
for this
the
facility.
Regardless, it's just...
Well,
I just wanted to make sure we started
so this project is being funded partly with GOB funding and impact fees. And so only this year were we able to secure sufficient funding to provide the type of facility that we wanted to provide. You're on the council, you know how hard it is to deal with the budget, and sometimes you don't have enough money and you have to secure additional funding. Instead of having multi-year funding, we now have all the funding in 1 year and are able to move with the construction.
Okay, well, my point
We
is
just
that
added $2 million this year.
Well, my point is that we were led to believe at that meeting several years ago that the funding was in place and the project was ready to go. I can't speak to who spoke at that time and, what was on their mind and what money they believed was available. But, and while I appreciate that this is finally going to happen, it's, it's frustrating particularly to the parents, they've got kids in school and they're looking forward to this new facility. And it's been talked about for years and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And, some of the parents their children may be leaving the school by the time that this is done. So, while I appreciate this is going to go forward, it is somewhat of a frustrating process.
Noted. Thank you.
Actually, I have one more.
Yeah.
Fire away. Start down there.
Well, no,
Well, I think Isaac was first, and then we'll go over.
I'm not as optimistic as Bob is. I too, as mayor, negotiated or spoke to the school board members, not necessarily about this project. I haven't, and I don't remember the groundbreaking being for this, but
Maybe it was for something else, I just remember being out there and groundbreaking.
but I do have in front of me information, both in the form of a town meeting that was held back in 2003, I see comments that were made by the council at that time and various residents, and I also see a joint use agreement where on the first page of the recitals, it says that the school board is converting Ruth K. Broad Elementary School into a K-8 facility with a total student enrollment not to exceed 1,200 students. And I think at the time that we began talking about the K through 8, the town was ready to see the portable classrooms that were on the field disappear and a permanent structure be put into place. At the time the construction of the K-8 took place, the building on the other side of the field, there was an agreement, entered into this agreement, which talks about parking. That the agreement that the town made with the school board was that the school board was going to buy 130 spots to mitigate the effects of the additional, teachers or faculty that were required to convert Ruth K. Broad to a K-8. I'm concerned about two things. I'm very concerned about the additional parking that's going to be required, and I think it would be intelligent for us if we actually had the capacity and the power to negotiate with you guys, that we should require that you guys mitigate the additional parking that's going to be required with the new facility. That's one thing, because right now you have almost a full city block of school with about 10 or maybe 20 parking spots on site, and a commitment to buy 130 spots from our parking garage, which is already getting kind of full at some points during the year. So I think there has to be a little bit more dialogue on the matter of parking. Another thought that I had, that I kind of backed up with some information from the school board website, was the fact that at this point in time, that Ruth K. Broad K-8 has a total enrollment of 1,382 students, which is pretty much already in violation of the joint use agreement. But that amount of students are attending a school with a capacity of 990. Plus, we have an agreement that you aren't going to exceed 1,200 students. That puts the school capacity at 140%. One of our neighboring elementary schools is W.J. Bryan Elementary School. They have a capacity of 762 students, and their total enrollment is 723 students, which is at 95% capacity. Arch Creek Elementary School has a total capacity of 642 students and a total enrollment of 562 students. That's capacity of 88%. Biscayne Elementary has a total capacity of 822 students and total enrollment of 724 students, which is also at 88% capacity. David Lawrence K-8 Center has 1,500 students enrolled in a school built for 1,362. All right, they're at 110% capacity. And Norman Edelcup Elementary's K-8 is at 125% capacity. I also checked on Nautilus and Beach High. Nautilus is pretty much at 100% capacity, more or less. And Beach High is about 114% capacity. It appears to me that this project became relevant because the capacity of the school is beyond 115% capacity, which I understand to be the benchmark or the watermark for the school board to accept the capacity of the school. And it appears that you guys are building more student stations in order to accommodate the overcrowding of the school at the expense of us. And I'm going to tell you why. You know, yeah, you're coming up with the capital funds to build the project. That's fine. But you're bringing in, I would say, 30% more traffic now in a situation that's already bad. And, you're bringing in additional children to the town where there's 6,000 residents, less than 6,000 residents. Biscayne Elementary is at 88% capacity, and there must be 25,000 residents around there. And there's tons of parking. Here, we're going to have a school with 1,500 kids. The Bay Harbor Island is going to be only known for this school. And it's, there's and the traffic that goes with it, it's going to be unbearable. The building is beautiful. But, I don't know if we're doing the right thing. I don't know if this is going to be better for my citizens. Honestly. I don't know if it's going to be better for my citizens. If at least this plan came with some type of parking mitigation where you guys are forced to buy a lot or two lots and create parking, it begins to make sense to me. But like this, for you guys to build what appears to be, I don't know, I'm not sure how many square feet you're building.
24,000 square feet.
24,000 square feet of inhabitable space. The rest is going to be the basketball court, I guess. You guys, you got to create parking.
Do you have a plan in place of how many additional staff and how many parking spaces you're going to?
Well, basically,
They're
I
shaking
certainly
their heads
defer
no.
to the region, but we are looking to house existing students with existing teachers, so the teachers are already parking there.
No, I understand that.
So there's no additional parking being created as a result of building the new building. We're basically decompressing the overcrowding. The teachers are there, and the students are there. It should also be noted that Bay Harbor K-8 has boundaries that go beyond Bay Harbor, so it also encompasses Bal Harbor and Surfside.
Right.
And Indian
But
Creek.
it didn't always.
Well, maybe it is,
You know what,
but I'm
let me
not-
just really close my point, like just to put a punctuation mark on my point.
Sure.
Is that this project is great for Biscayne Elementary.
Yeah, but you're adding 400 student stations, but is that to alleviate the current, I mean, are you changing the overall size of the student population in
No.
the school? Because the problem has always been, off and on over the years, of a lot of students from out of the district coming into the school, and that not being monitored properly by the school board or by the school administrators. So while, our town is growing and we are adding housing units to our town.
Not a lot.
No, I'm not saying a lot, but there are, the population fluctuates a little bit, and also in surrounding communities that are within the district, okay? One of the problems, again, is, permitting students from out of the district to come into this district, and if you're going to increase, because we still have as Isaac pointed out, the joint use agreement which says not to exceed 1,200 students, so if you're moving those 1,200 students into, additional facilities within the school building so that they have smaller classes, which they should have, then that's acceptable. But if you're adding 400 student stations so that you can bring in hundreds of more students, or let students from outside the district remain in this facility, that is a violation of this agreement and it's not acceptable.
No, as I pointed out, again through the mayor, as I pointed out at the beginning, this is meant to relieve the overcrowding that you currently have. The capacity of the school is 990. And by the way, the state derates our student stations by 10% for K-8, so if you build 1,000 student stations, the state automatically derates it by 10%. So by the time that we add these 396 student stations, which will not be 396 because the capacity will be 10% less, we will have approximately 1,300 or so student stations, which is the population.
It's at 1,200 pursuant to the...
Well, that's pursuant to the joint use agreement that was crafted specifically for us to be able to use your parking garage, which we have been leasing for the last 10 years, and for the town to be able to use the open space. So we have a joint use facility for, agreement for the open space, and we have a joint use agreement that allows the town also to use some of our spaces in the
Well, that's all well and
actual facility.
good. That's all well and good, but the opening paragraph says with a total student enrollment not to exceed 1,200 students.
Right.
And I'm not aware that any amendment to this agreement has been proposed. So the fact that you're building more student stations and heading to the school does not give you the right to add to the student population.
Well, again, through the mayor, the purpose of that joint use agreement, an interlocal agreement, was for that specific addition. We built an addition for 440
But it's still relevant.
seats.
It's still relevant. It's still the contract between the town and the school board.
Still relevant.
I think it's changed.
I think that there's a couple of things.
So I think there's three separate issues. One is the actual building. Two is the reason that we're building the building. Okay, and three is okay, one is the building itself, two is the reason why we're building the building, and three is what we're going to do about it. So we have to really dissect the three separately, because the building is a beautiful building. I mean, as far as the color goes, I would like them to paint the whole building, the other buildings to match the building. Nobody has a problem with the building. The building is a beautiful building. I mean, there's nothing anybody could say. It's a gorgeous building, and it's a wonderful addition. It's the reason behind the building that everybody's so upset about.
And we're not talking about necessarily right now, but going into what Isaac's saying as well, I think I agree with him on this, is that you're saying it's to alleviate the overcrowding right now, but it's a gateway to you being able to, a year or 2 years later down the road, open up the door and say, you know what, we need to send even more students there.
Right.
And that becomes the problem. So I understand you may come up here and in good faith say this is not going to increase the number of students right now. but that's not going to necessarily be the same case 2 years down the line.
So when
I
we...
think that there's something else too that we need to make sure that we cover in this, because this is important, and it's to your point, Stephanie, is that we have another thing. So we have the current overcrowding that we have, but we also have the construction and the new units that are coming online,
Right.
of which a portion of those are going to be people who have children. So while we're building 396 units, right, that we can put students in right now, one, we are principally overcrowded. Two, we have students in there that are not within the district that we're serving right now. And three, we have more students that are going to be coming to this school. So to cover the cap of what we have right now is insufficient. We need to be looking into the future and projecting how many students are we going to have there after we reduce the number of students that don't belong there that attend every day.
Let me ask you also, you talked about no additional students right now. Are you planning on adding additional faculty? You're adding 16 more classrooms and everything else. Is there any plan for additional faculty right now?
Through the chair, what we've said is that...
Your name, please.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Your name, please.
Just Jose Bueno, Region Superintendent, North Region Office.
Thank you.
What we said is that we are alleviating, so therefore, instead of having the 2 teachers in the classroom, each teacher would have his or her own classroom. So therefore, there would be no additional parking spaces needed.
So you're saying you will not be hiring any additional teachers? Because, I mean, again, we run back to a year or two down the line.
Right.
I mean, I've got to believe all of a sudden we're going to see a couple more teachers, more parking required, we're going to have more students coming in the door at the gateway. I mean, I don't see how you escape that when, I mean, Isaac gave perfect numbers for you. There's an overuse of one facility, and we're paying the expenses of everybody else. It's time to make sure that everybody else pays their dues. Take some of the students, and look, we love having the kids here, but the fact of the matter is, it's too taxing on us, and it needs to be...
I have a question.
The boundaries are not being looked at to be changed at this point in time, even in the future. I mean, right now, I can tell you that the boundaries, we are not looking at changing the boundaries. So your fear, and understandable, I don't see that happening in the near future.
I have a question.
Hold on.
So why do we have boundaries?
Wait. No, we'll get to that. Kelly? Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. Whose responsibility is it to be tracking and validating the proper residency for the children? Is it school administrators? Is it Dade County School Police? Or does the Bay Harbor Islands town government and police department have any part in this?
That would be left up to the school administration. In this particular school, I can tell you, working with Dr. Rodriguez in the past, and working with Mr. Saperstein now, this is almost a threefold, for lack of a better word, protection that we use here at Bay Harbor. When a parent says, I'd like for my child to go to Bay Harbor, and they do not live within the area, they fill out a application. That application is first viewed by one of my region directors that oversees the transfer office. Once that has been approved, it goes to Mrs. Allian. Mrs. Allian is the region director that oversees this area here. She will now look at it. We haven't contacted the parent. We haven't said anything to the parent on saying that the transfer has been approved or hasn't been approved, okay? Once she gives its approval, that comes then to me for final approval, okay? At that point in time, I either say yay or nay. Right now, I hear your concern, but right now what we have on our numbers is 47 out-of-area transfers.
I have a follow-up question.
Hold on. Why don't we do this? Because we have 2 separate items, and I know we're trying to, subsume them into one big discussion, but I think what we should be doing is focusing on the school. And I know there's a relevance between the 2 items, but let's give it, let's talk about the building and try to figure out all the questions we have in regards to the building, and then we're going to get on to the agenda item dealing with the overcrowding, because there is a relationship, but also keep in mind, there is a separation, and there's some things that we need to talk about just about the building. So let's focus on the building, and then we're going to have a whole agenda item just on this, and don't worry, everyone's going to get time to say their piece on that.
Can we go back?
So going back to the building,
So I would like to know about the building. I love the color of the buildings, but it doesn't really blend, as you know, we've talked about it, Anna, with the rest of the building. And we had discussed about painting the rest of the building to kind of go together, because now we have this ugly elephant on one side and this beautifully building on the other. So I'd like to know, when are we going to paint the rest of the buildings to match so that they all kind of are cohesive together?
Yes, to the mayor. Basically, our intent is to paint the entire campus so that there's harmony between the new building and the building that's currently existing. So there's some features in the existing campus, existing buildings, that can actually be used to accentuate and use it. We're going to use the same colors that are being used to accent the whole campus, so that it's tied together.
So 2019, the whole campus is going to be...
Right. Or I won't be back here.
By the way, she has been an extremely advocate, so you know, every time I've called her, whenever there's been a problem, she's always, so you know, extremely helpful in helping Bay Harbor. And so if you could tell them that all the temporary air conditioning, it's being put...
Yeah, the water-chilled lines are being basically rerouted underground. Yes.
So that's the good news. I mean, they are planning on fixing that, and Anna has always been a humongous advocate for Bay Harbor. So I don't want her to be beaten up too much, because she's...
I'm feeling a little black and blue right now.
I wanted to give you the positive, too. I want to say...
No, thank you.
No, I have a couple questions. Dealing with, one of the things that I thought was in the original design, and a parent mentioned it the other day, was the science lab. And I see it categorized now as a collaboration classroom. Wasn't that originally supposed to be a science lab? Because I don't believe the middle school has a proper science lab. And some parents, I know, my kids are too young to be in the middle school, but I know that was a concern that some parents had about having an actual science lab. Is that...
So there's a science classroom, demo classroom in the building that we built previously, not this one, but the one that we built some years ago. We can go back, not in this building, because it would mean completely retrofitting some of these spaces. You have to put in gas, you have to put in a lot of different things, right? So the best thing to go about that is to look at the existing campus and maybe retrofit one of the existing classrooms into a science lab. Typically in a K-8, I have to tell you, in a K-8, we don't typically put, the facilities list does not include a full science lab because it's a different choice than a middle school, traditional middle school. But we are more than happy to take a look at that.
And then the other thing was, again, one of the number one questions I've asked Dr. Rodriguez, she probably has the pitch memorized, was the increase in VPK classes. And, you know, one of the biggest problems we have in our school is, you know, there's only one VPK class. So you're talking about 19 slots, and on average, we're talking about 80 to 100 kids that put their name in for 19 slots. I mean, it truly is a lottery. And I've gone through it twice. I won once and I lost once. So I'm not doing so bad, but I should have had triplets. So, you know.
One time having multiples is to your benefit.
Yeah,
I have twins.
She's got twins.
And when you get one in VPK, you get the other one.
Yeah.
So one time it works for you.
Last year's VPK class had triplets and 2 sets of twins. So that's 7 kids. So in three shots. So
I'm sure there was plenty.
So my question is, what are we going to do about increasing the number of VPK classes? Because as more families move into Bay Harbor and also into Surfside and Bal Harbor, I see a pattern where I see younger families. I see people coming in with kids, or they're coming in young. They're making their first purchase of a home, and then they're having kids. So I don't foresee in the near future a decrease in the demand for the early childhood, like the VPK. And I know it's not a guarantee. I know that it's I look at it this way. You look at Miami Beach and you see what they do, and they have additional VPK classes for their elementary schools, and they've had some great relationships with the city. My understanding was that this was going to produce more VPK classes, not necessarily in the building, but as you move the double classes to this building, you free up the space in the actual original building, and that was a possibility. So here now, is this something that I can foresee that in the near future? Probably not, obviously not, my kids are going to be gone, but for future generations, are we going to see more VPK classes at Ruth K. Brown?
More students.
Yeah, well, no.
I don't think they can
The other
guarantee
direction.
it.
I can't tell you that now, but I don't want to put something on the record that's not accurate, so, and I have not discussed that possibility with anybody in the region, or even looking
Mr.
at
Bueno,
that.
can you're the...
I mean, to take classrooms away, something's going to have to give.
No, I understand, but can you opine on that?
You don't want me hiring more teachers. In jest. That would be a conversation that we can definitely have. I can't answer that answer right now because there's different offices that would have to be involved in making sure that we would have that extra VPK. However, if that is a wish that the council would want to see, by all means, we can definitely take a look at it and have it addressed with the proper offices downtown.
I think it's something that deserves its due diligence. I think that having, we're talking about, 1,300 kids and we have one VPK class. It's not, it's really...
Mr. Mayor, I hear you loud and clear. My suggestion would be is to contact Mrs. Iraida and have her, so we can go ahead and start that conversation.
We're good friends, so,
Yeah.
And then the last question that I had, two more questions. One was, and it's great that you're spending all this money on the new school, but I'd be remiss if we didn't mention for the current school that it's been difficult to appropriate school board dollars to pay for the things that you should be paying for anyway. And like I said, we look at this and you're talking about approximately $9 million. That's a lot of money. I've asked for 2 years, because I'm on the PTA board, for 2 years for a copy machine. And it seems somewhat petty for me in the council meeting to talk about a copy machine that costs, $15,000? But let me tell you, you're not coughing up the $15,000. So you're spending $9 million to build a new building, but for 2 years we've had a need for a new copy machine. The air conditioning system, doesn't work properly in the current building. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, how many parents have had to go through the process where, me personally, I've had to go to the school and go to the closets and bring the portable air conditioners that our teachers actually pay for out of their own pocket and set them up in the room. And that's what we do as parents in the current school. So my question is, and again, I'm not doubting your ability to build a new building. I'm saying we should also be mindful of what we're doing in the current building, because those things are happening right now. And, I just want to keep on track that our first priority is to educate those kids. And let me tell you, if you have to sit in one of those rooms all day, there's no learning going on. There's no learning going on in a room that's literally like a little sauna. And that's a problem that's going on right now in your school. So I want to make sure that's something... it's something that I want to bring to the table, because I've noticed it, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page. One of the great things about being in Bay Harbor, and Iraida knows this a lot, Dr. Rodriguez knows this, Mr. Saperstein knows this, is that we do whatever we got to do for a school. There's no, that's your side of the property, this is our side. Whenever you guys have always asked for something, we've always come up to the plate. But the fact of the matter is the PTA shouldn't have to buy the new copy machine. And the fact of the matter is the town can't send our engineer to fix your AC unit. There's some things that you guys have to do, and I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you, you got to invest a little bit of effort in the current building in addition to whatever we decide to do with this, okay? I just want to make sure you guys know that. All right? Thanks. All right. Is there anyone else that has questions, issues about the new building? I know we're going to probably talk about the agreement in the next item.
Honestly, I think it would be appropriate if there's going to be new construction on that property, that we should enter into a new joint use agreement, an updated one, that addresses the current conditions rather than
that, I think to initiate the conversation, this is what I'd rather do, is I'd rather notify them tomorrow morning that they're in default of the current agreement. Let them see what they need to do as far as the remedy. They got 30 days. Otherwise, according to that, they need to come to the table and remedy it, or we can go into further litigation if need be. This way, at least, it's a different bargaining position, and we can actually get this resolved.
Okay.
Rather than place them in default.
Can you talk into the mic? We can't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was saying as far as legal counsel, I would actually recommend instead that we notify them that they're in default as of tomorrow morning. It's the agreement. Give them the 30 days for the remedy as required, and at that point, they have to come to the table and start negotiating.
Marlene, do you need a vote for that, or can we just have council do that?
We can start council.
First of all, Craig, what are our options and what do they come back with?
Well,
Because how strong is this interlocal agreement
well, I think
before we go down that path?
I think the interlocal agreement is strong. I think it sets out the duties and obligations. It does have a provisions for default and notice and opportunity to cure, and says that after the expiration, there's a right to explain how they're going to cure, and that's figured in. But ultimately, if there's not a cure, and that's on page 14, then it says if within 30 days after receipt of the default notice, there's a failure to cure or to provide a written response, then we have all the remedies available at law.
So,
including specific performance.
Right, so let's...
Yeah, but, you kind of, well, you took my train off the tracks by saying that we should, file a notice of default. I think we need a new joint use agreement.
Right.
Because part of this joint use agreement is the attachment of the plans, which had already changed by the time the construction was over anyway, because there's supposed to be a black box theater and all this that we can use. And so, you know what, I think, it would benefit us to have a new joint use agreement or an additional joint use agreement that has a complete detailed list of the plans that they're proposing, et cetera, et cetera.
That may be fine, but I'm concerned, in terms of opening the whole thing up, and I have no issue with putting them on notice of default, but, we need to make sure that we're not, as we get into, an amendment of this agreement or a new agreement, permitting an increase in the student population.
Right.
And that's a concern.
Me too. That's
So
what
we
I'm
can have these
concerned about.
negotiations after we've notified them that they're in default. And at that point, it's a different negotiation.
Yeah, but just to remind you that this joint use agreement had, plans and specifications attached to it, so I'd like to see what the new plans and
We
specifications
can have those
are.
conversations, but let's...
It puts us in a position to start
Well, how about if we have a conversation with them, first of all, with the, saying, listen, you're over the limit, what can we do together to decrease? They're going to come back and say to us, we're building a new building, that's how we're going to, alleviate, let's get real, people, alleviate the, the overcrowdedness, and in the meantime, we should then work with them to alleviate the people who don't belong here, which would be an immediate relief, and we would be happy to work with the schools to do that as they build that, versus, we still, and then say to them, let's work on a new agreement, because,
Josh, if I could?
Well, let's just say one thing. According to the agreement here, that's what actually has to happen once we notify them of default. It's not 30 days where they're done. It's 30 days. In other words, immediately they have to go into negotiations to discuss how to alleviate it.
And
So all we're doing is starting the clock and say, listen, don't push the meeting off another month. Don't push it off 2 months. Sit down with us and discuss a resolution. That's all this says to do.
And also, another thing to mention, that after this agreement came in, the legislature passed a law, in their infinite wisdom, that we need to be cognizant about at the same time, is that technically all public schools are open. So we need to be aware that what's the percentage threshold? What percentage is it? It goes by percentage, right? All right? What's the percentage that if we fall below, it becomes open?
The school district, basically, Iraida Mendez Cactaya, Associate Superintendent, 1450 Northeast 2nd Avenue. The state statute that was passed a couple of years ago said that if a school has capacity, and the capacity is determined by the local school board, it has to be posted on the website, and if there is capacity, anyone can go to that school.
What's the percentage?
It's determined by the local school district, and it's about 100%.
So 100%. So if we ever fall below 100%, the school essentially becomes open. Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're going to see those dates. So, but that being said, I think that when we do discuss this, we have to be aware of that, because there's some things, obviously, we can't enter into an agreement. It's something that the legislature precludes us from doing, so.
I think we're all in agreement that the discussion needs to happen. I'm just saying that I think it's better than if we at least, rather than waive our right, go down the process, and we should follow the agreement that we signed earlier and simply say, look, you're in default. It's time to have a conversation as required in this agreement. Let's have that conversation.
All right,
That's all.
Mr. Mayor.
so let's do that. Is there anyone in disagreement? All right, so we're going to do that.
Wait,
I agree with where you want to go, and I know your message is being heard very loudly right now, that maybe we could have a meeting first, before we give them a formal notice.
I agree. I think...
Because we can always do that, but at least hear what they have to say as far as a plan of action.
Then at least we authorize council to be able to enter the default if it doesn't happen, if a meeting doesn't happen to our satisfaction within the next... That's good.
By the next... All right, okay? All right, there you go. So we're all in agreement.
I would suggest that the way this work is that the town manager, with our help, prepare a notice of items, a notice of complaints, a notice of things that we want done, and give them a reasonable but not too long opportunity to respond, either through council, which is probably would be my preference to deal with the school board council, on what the school board is willing to do, and then reduce that to a written agreement, failing which we then take Josh's suggestion, give them a formal notice and formalize everything. But an initial mediation type period short wouldn't hurt, if the school board would be willing to do that.
Can I
I'm
make
sure
one?
that'd be up to me,
I want to make one last comment. Right, I apologize for interrupting. And Anna, thank you for the presentation, although, I mean, I didn't see this until I got to the podium today. And it was very nice that you went through this 8-page PowerPoint without bringing the PowerPoint for the public to see it. You know, that dog don't hunt. You know, you guys really, you need to engage the community more on this. I mean, I've heard about this project for like 2.5 years, like Bob was saying, and, you know, for us to get this in this format, the day of the meeting is inappropriate, in my opinion. You know, I think, you know, it would be a good, it would be a proper gesture for you guys to maybe offer to have like a town hall meeting on this new project, bring the full PowerPoint, bring greater detail, and, you know, just introduce the community to what you guys want to do, so, so it's, the process is fully transparent.
Yeah.
You know, those are just my thoughts.
All right. So we're in agreement how we're going to handle this.
Wait, we have some public
We have
comment.
public comment, so, all right, did you want to say a few words before?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the manager's approach to this. You have today, you have a representative from the school board, you have the region here present, you have facilities, you have people from the superintendent's cabinet here. So we're here to work, collaboratively with the town. So we appreciate your offer. We want to negotiate. We want to sit and collaborate with you and deliver a product that your community can be proud of.
No, and I appreciate that. And for the record, just so you know, in the years I've been on the council, we've never seen this many individuals from the school board come. So, you know, I just want to say that they are here. So that's obviously a good sign. We do have one public comment, Kathleen. I'm sorry, two? Okay. Kathleen Kennedy?
Are you done with me? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Kathleen Kennedy, 9180 West Bay Harbor Drive.
We're a town of 6,000 people. Why would the Board of Education spend $9 million? Why don't they go somewhere else, in Miami Shores or somewhere else? We're a small little town here. We have traffic so bad right now that this is going to add to it. Never mind the season coming in. It's going to be chaos. I want to congratulate each and every one of you. Isaac, thank you for taking the lead, for talking about what's going on here today with the school. I remember a time that we used to have to fight for that field out there so our kids can play basketball out there or play football out there. We took a fight. I think you, Stephanie, took the lead on that. You know, it's a two-way street, and these guys have to come up with money and help us and do things for our town. We're giving our town away to everybody, Miami Shores, everywhere. What about our kids and our local community? It's ridiculous. So I want to congratulate each and every one of you for stepping up to the plate here. And I think it's disgusting that our school doesn't have air conditioning. Are you kidding me? Our children deserve better than that. Okay? Shame on you, Board of Education.
Thank you for your comments,
Francis Newhart?
Friend, come on up.
They do.
Francis Newhart, 1060 King Concourse. Before we even discuss this expansion, I'd like to discuss the joint use agreement. This is a joint use agreement that was signed May 8, 2007. It's a 30-year agreement. We have everything written out and specified exactly, and I think Selva was touching on that a little bit. But if you look at this, we shouldn't even be talking about this. We should be talking about a default of this agreement. For 30 years we have this agreement, and for 10 years you've been in default with this agreement. And first of all, the reason why we have this agreement is because, according to this, we had inadequate green space for our town, and we went into an agreement with the parking garage. And in the school board agreement, it says the school board and town are mutually interested in and concerned. They're concerned about the students of Miami-Dade County Public Schools and the residents of the town of Bay Harbor Islands. Do you know, I never could get a number of how many students from Bay Harbor go to that school? We don't even know.
Do we know? The principal?
Well, I don't want to waste my time, but anyway. Okay. You talked about 1,200 students. The other thing is, in the contract, it says here, with the joint use agreement, the parties further agree that during the term of the agreement, 30 years, no structures, buildings, or portables shall be built or otherwise placed on the outdoor facilities. We're building something over the basketball courts. The other thing is, so our agreement was to use these facilities. And the facilities are the play field, the basketball courts, the tennis courts, the walkway, blah, 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 for the whatever. And we have school hours of when we can use them. And it's from 4 to 11 on non-school hours, and on non-school days, 8 to 11 p.m. Every time I go by that school, because we got loads of teenagers hanging around our town here, of Bay Harbor residents, they can't use the field. It's always locked. And they're not even allowed on the field, besides using the facilities of the school, which we are allowed to. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's no interest in the school with the residents of this town. And there's no reason for them to have to build even more when they've already broken the joint use agreement. Why we're even discussing having them build anything here when they already defaulted on a 30-year agreement, where they're going to default on this agreement. We're jumping the gun here. We should be having this Treverton or whatever town attorney that we used in this agreement come back and fight them about how they defaulted on this agreement. We shouldn't even go this far with building a new facility for the students of Surfside, because it's surely not the residents of Bay Harbor. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Mr. Saperstein.
Does somebody know how many Bay Harbor Island students?
How many students do we have, and do you lock the facilities on the weekend?
Yeah, well,
According to our records, all the students that attend, for the exception of 47 students, that attend Bay Harbor.
No, what he's asking... All right, guys, calm down, that's not what he's asking. How many students are from Bay Harbor?
We don't have that.
You don't have it broken down by municipality?
Okay.
Okay.
Just this municipality?
Yeah, there's 4 municipalities that are in the boundary.
Okay, I have a
Now, I want to
different,
make a correction before I want to make a correction because you said that, the representation from the school board is, off the charts. I just want to tell you who was here last time in addition to my cousin Michael. Last time, there was a presentation here. There was Merritt Sternheim, the superintendent of schools. There was Dr. Michael Kropp, who was the school board chairman. Enid Weissman, the assistant superintendent. The principal of Ruth K. Broad at that time, Arlene Ortenzo. And there were several other, Fernando Valverni and Victor Alonso. And let me tell you, they had a pretty good showing last time as well.
Mr. Saperstein, can you please answer how many students you have at the school?
Is it?
And,
Please come up here.
please, and also, do you lock the gates on the weekends?
Next to him, next to Ron Watson.
How much is it?
Good evening. My name is Scott Saperstein, principal of Ruth K. Broad, Bay Harbor K-8 Center. Student enrollment is at as of today, 1,362 students.
Okay.
And to answer the question regarding the facilities, I have not received one complaint from the community regarding the facility being closed for the community for use.
Okay.
But do you lock the gates on the weekends?
We do. We're the ones we do it.
Are you aware of any children who are not from Bay Ball or Surfside?
No. All right. All right, so we're done finally with the presentation, and we're gonna get to the agenda item.
There's no kids.
All right, so we're gonna move up to number 18. If we could just read the agenda item, Ron. Thanks.
Discussion requested by Mayor Lennon and Vice Mayor Bruda with regards to Ruth K. Broad students living outside the school boundaries.
Okay, all right, so now we're on this item. Just want to take a moment and kind of go back a little bit 4 years and kind of go over what we've done, because for everyone's edification, maybe not everyone knows what the town and the municipalities were doing. 4 years ago, Bay Harbor Islands, Bal Harbor, and Surfside, had an understanding that we were going to contribute to provide some level of additional services to the school, because as we mentioned before, we don't say no, we find ways to say yes. And it was an understanding that I'm not even sure, I wasn't even mayor, I was vice mayor back then, that Bay Harbor Islands, Bal Harbor, and Surfside each contributed a third in the cost of a computer program that checked the backgrounds of individuals. It was LexisNexis. Our understanding with the school was that they were going to run a check on all the new children that came in. Bay Harbor Islands Police Department was going to provide training for free for use of that program. And when the staff identified an individual family that they didn't think belonged, because the computer program read out addresses or areas outside of the boundary of Ruth K. Broad, it would go to the respective police department. So if they said they lived in Surfside, then we would send it to the Surfside detective. If it went to Bay Harbor Islands, our detectives took it. If it was Bal Harbor, the Bal Harbor detective would take it and run with it. And this was the understanding we had when Dr. Rodriguez was principal. That worked out great until we were told that was not legal, and the program pretty much dissipated. So now the system that we have is they do, to be honest, I don't know. I know that they did some letters that went home. I'm not sure. I know one person's going to talk tonight and say that just to see what happened, they didn't turn it in just to see, and nothing happened, so I'm sure we're going to hear about that tonight. But, my concern was that, and because it happened to me, 4 years ago, when my oldest son went to the lottery for VPK, he didn't get in, and I noticed somebody that did not belong. And the frustration as a parent was just, I mean, you know, when you're paying for private school and you're spending $10,000 a year, it's like you felt like you lost on some game show or something. And the hurdles that I had to personally go through to prove that someone didn't belong was just outrageous. Now that I have 2 kids out of my 3 in Bay Harbor, I have to tell you, everyone knows. I mean, it's not like we don't know people. I mean, I can tell you personally, last year, I went to a birthday party and you know, it's at someone's house in North Miami. You know they're not in the district. My concern is that I never wanted it to be where parents pitted each other against each other. It feels kind of horrible to be put in a position where your child is maybe friends with someone in a classroom and you find out something. That's not the way it should be. The intent always has been that the school board bears the responsibility of handling their operations. They're in charge of educating our kids. They're in charge of keeping them safe. They're also in charge of making sure that the kids that belong and the kids that don't. It has never been my intention to try to turn the parents into the whistleblowers, so to speak. And that's not something I think is an easy pill to swallow for a parent. That being said, I know that there are a lot of parents that want to talk, but I know ARIDA, since we've had discussions in the last couple of weeks, I know that they are prepared to present an interlocal agreement tonight that will mimic I guess legally to the extent that they can, what we had 4 years ago. And so I want you to say a few words about that before we let people speak, because I know some people are not going to like this and maybe they want more. And I'm not saying no to it, but what I want to do is I want to give you the opportunity because you did come and you came with something. So I think that matters. So please.
Do I have to say my name again?
No.
Okay.
You already.
Just a couple of things for the record. There are no AC issues at the school. Occasionally, AC units go out in all of our schools. You'll see the alerts going back and forth on a daily basis. Units go out on a daily basis throughout our school system. Additionally, Miami-Dade County Public Schools is a county-wide school district, so the schools, although it may be within a municipal boundary, they serve all kids within our county and not specifically for a certain municipality. As it relates to the discussion that we have had, Mr. Mayor, for several days now, the school district is, when parents come and register their children, they have to provide 2 proofs of residency. Typically, it's your driver's license, an FP&L, or some other bill, or a tax bill where you're paying your taxes, or a lease. And that's how students get registered into our schools on a daily basis. What we are prepared to do is do some level of a attendance verification program through a partnership with the town. The conversations I've had with the mayor has been that the mayor would purchase, probably in partnership with the other municipalities, and we would verify the address verification using that type of system when there's some indication that their address may not be correct. For example, if we do a mail out to the school, to the homes, to the address that they have provided us, and the mail does not come back, then that is some indication where we would be able to run that information to ensure that that's where they are actually living.
All right. So,
Arida, do you know how many kids in Bay Harbor Island are in elementary school, and how many are in junior high school?
How many
kids are in elementary school, and how many kids are in
the middle school?
The middle school.
I do not have that information off the top of my head, but we can certainly get that information.
Do you have a system in place that when more than one family registers with the same address that your system, flags it?
Through the mayor, not to my knowledge, do we have a system like that? It's basically human.
Like your computerized system doesn't flag more than one?
Cross-check, no.
Cross-check, or buildings that have come down and they're still using,
Buildings that don't exist.
that don't exist? I mean,
Well, the mail will come back for sure.
The mail will come back. I mean, that's, the typical address verification is done that
Forward your
way.
mail.
Oh, well,
You
yeah.
can forward your mail.
All right.
I can save you time. Stand on the southwest corner of West Broadview and King Concourse and just watch the cars.
Watch the traffic.
Through the mayor, may I address that? There are reasonable, acceptable explanations for that happening. First of all, by state statutes, the children of military can go anywhere they'd like.
I understand that, but the 48 cars, because you said 47, 48 cars.
I understand that. So there are reasonable explanations for some of it. I can tell you, as I've explained to the mayor, that we have done address verification in partnership with other municipalities, and they really have not yielded what the general perception is, that it's going to be huge numbers of students leaving the school. So there's only one way to really be able to address this and perhaps deal with perhaps a real issue, or deal with the perception is doing a systematic verification process.
All right, so,
well, let me ask you this. I have another question for you. The fact that we are so overcrowded and you have school next to us, like Isaac pointed out, Biscayne Elementary, that is under-enrolled, and the impact to our school is so high, and the traffic into our island is so high, are you looking to alleviate some of the impact from our school to another school that is less impacted?
Through the mayor, through the chair, you heard our region superintendent that at this point, there is no intention to look at the attendance boundary of the school. So at this point, that is not going to be addressed or reviewed at this point.
So when would it be? What percentage do we need to be at, or how much of an impact to our city and our streets and our cars in the morning? Do we need an impact study? Do we need a car? I mean, what do we need for you to be able to tell us that the safety of our town is impacted in such a way that we can't handle any more of that, what we have coming in?
Through the chair, the town could submit a letter to the superintendent, request that the attendance boundary for the school be reviewed. And it will go to the attendance boundary committee, which is a committee that is made up of outside residents of the community, appointed by the board, each of the board members and the superintendent. And that can be, there could be a formal request for that to be reviewed.
all right, well...
I have one
go ahead.
thing. So I want to thank you guys for coming out. We're not an easy group of people to sit in front of, especially when we're really passionate and tenacious about something, and you guys have done very well, and I appreciate that. But I think it's something important for us to say, and I hear your point, but I think we have to say this. There are numerous children who they are not subject to divorce. They're not military children. They attend our school, and they do not live inside of our district. And I think what we are asking you guys to do is to please enforce that boundary that we have. Yes, we can look at what that boundary is, but right now, as it stands, we're Surfside, Bal Harbor, and Bay Harbor attends that school. And I am telling you, as someone who my children go to that school, there are children who do not live there and do not fall under an exclusion that go there. And so we're asking you to please enforce that boundary.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, I think that in our conversations, or my conversations to the mayor and with the region, we're willing to review that, do an address verification program in combination with the town. Again, there are allowable exceptions to that.
Yeah.
And so you'll never I mean, I don't want to leave here, I like to manage expectations.
Well, we get
We're not
that.
asking
What does, you talk about verification, what does that entail? You've talked about, and I hear some comment from the audience, about sending out mail, and if it doesn't come back, then you assume that they're there, and people are saying, of course, mail can be forwarded. So what does verification consist of if there's any suspicion that somebody outside the boundary area is attending school without an exception?
Through the mayor. The address verification is you send out the mailers, right? If there is no response, then we would do a check through the Nexus Lexus program that the mayor was discussing and offering to allow us to verify that. But it would have to be our staff that does that, and we would have to call in the parents and say, hey, you've got a problem.
But what are you mailing out? A request that they verify their residency? Is that what you're mailing out? Or is it just like a newsletter? I mean, what are you mailing out?
Well, we put down that they live there, they're not going to change their mind, they're going to keep on saying the same thing.
Right.
One of the instances that we can take is we can do a mail out, and we can mail every single home a newsletter, like you said, council member. In my experience, okay, I can tell you that the individuals that would forward their addresses would be so minute, okay, that chances are we wouldn't even catch those individuals in the first place.
What other options? I've been waiting.
I wasn't suggesting that you should send out a newsletter. What I'm asking is, what do you do to verify? I mean, what is it that you're mailing out?
It would be a newsletter, sir. If the newsletter comes back to us, okay, that means that A, it's undeliverable, B, the person that lives there basically puts on there that does not live. We would start with that process. We would call the students down, ask the students, do you still live here? We would make contact with parents, make all sorts of efforts to see why that letter didn't make it to the home.
We now know, and you know, that that's ineffective. What can we do instead? That's really what we need to focus on right now. The mailing doesn't work. Obviously, you've been trying that for years. It hasn't functioned. What is an alternative?
I have a suggestion, if I may interrupt you. I've been waiting. I'm formerly with law enforcement, myself retired. But we live in a society where, the police can't do everything, the administrators can't do everything. We have Crime Watch. You're asked to submit tips to Crime Stoppers. The website, I believe, has a field where you can anonymously report, you can call. Okay, well, you can make a phone call, or you can speak to somebody or some way. But, it's not so abhorrent. If this is such a problem and it needs to be identified, we're not asking you to go to your friends, but if there are parents and people here who, we're hearing that you're saying you see the families, and then after a while, then people will know. But I don't understand why there's such an avoidance to that, where if, we go to any website, the county property appraiser's website, you're asked to report, there's hotlines, Crime Stoppers, because if we're not going to do that, and then you're not going to follow up. It's my understanding that at North Beach Elementary, they have the city-provided school resource officers who do some work with this. And I know this changes from year to year, so this information might be 2 or 3 years old. But I know your Dade County School Board officers, they're not assigned to an individual school, right? They have multiple schools, so they're kind of spread thin.
Through the mayor, the police officer allocations are, all senior high schools have a police officer, all traditional middle schools have an officer, elementary and K-8s are shared based on incidents. Okay, so that's how the police allocations are.
Would it help you to have a locally provided school resource officer? And I'm not offering that, I'm saying, we'd have to have a discussion about it, but they have them in elementary schools in other cities where the city's willing to budget it. Maybe we could share it with the other 2 cities and talk about it with you.
Well, it's a little bit different, that's a very different conversation, because in other counties that don't have, Miami-Dade County is one of the only counties in the United States are actually, that have their own police department. It's a rare thing.
I understand it quite well, but I understand in North Beach, which is a very similar situation. It's also a top school. People are trying to get in. it seems like there are schools that are sought after, and then there are schools that are under capacity. So we're going to be either one or the other. So if that's something that the principal,
Through the
would
chair,
find or...
through the mayor, I apologize. What we have in Miami Beach is the city of Miami Beach provides a liaison police officer, but that isn't necessarily their assigned duties to verify address or to check addresses or...
Sometimes it's a civilian. I'm very familiar with the program. It can be an officer, or for a while, there were crossing guards, and there was a school liaison. They're often retired officers. So I don't know what's going on in this school year, but I know in recent past that there has been that kind of arrangement, and that there have been home visits.
I mean, I don't know how that would be different than what we did 4 years ago. I mean, 4 years ago, we volunteered our police officers from 3 different municipalities, and you've deemed that not to be permissible. I mean, that was a deal that we struck between our town, Surfside, Bal Harbor, and the school, and that, and I guess that's not possible. I mean, I'm not saying that anything is off the list.
Why was that not permissible?
Can you weigh in on this?
It was
Through the,
well,
our attorneys, through the mayor, our attorneys have ruled that giving any identifiable information of a student is in violation of FERPA. However, like my conversations with the mayor, we want to address this. We're all here in a spirit of collaboration. It's, so many people with so many ideas. I think it would behoove us, and actually, Mayor, there is a draft. I worked Friday night to have a draft interlocal agreement. The attorneys are looking at it now, in order for us to be able to send something for the town's consideration. So I would think that we can continue the dialogue with the hope and the goal to do an address verification.
Isn't it true that as of February, if you don't identify children by February of a calendar year, that after February, whether they belong in that district or school, that after February, you do not ask them to leave that calendar year?
Through the mayor, that's on a case-by-case manner. There is board rule that speaks to that. However, that is on a case-by-case situation. If it was done fraudulently, yes. We would ask for the family to go ahead and move. The only time that we would not and have some sort of consideration, and once again, it's on a case-to-case situation, is if the child is in their senior year, 8th grade, 12th grade, 5th grade at an elementary, knowing that would be the last time that they would be there, and also looking at the child's history, how long has that child been at that school, and whatnot.
All right, well...
So let me clarify. So if we go through this whole process and we find these whatever few or many children, and it's February, and they've been there since September, and they've been there for 4 or 5 years, and the mommy comes in, unfortunately, and says to Mr. Saperstein, please don't take him out, he's been here for 4 years and it's February. And as horrible as that is, if it's case by case, who makes that decision? Is it Mr. Saperstein that makes the decision? Is it the region that makes the decision? Because if we go through the whole process...
Ms. Stephanie, I don't want the kids kicked out in February. But
I don't want to...
Let me just say, look, again, anything happening here is the fault of a parent that's trying to sneak their kid in.
100%.
And I understand the parent is trying to be a good parent by getting them into a better school, because that's what we are. But, I don't want to have any chance that we're penalizing a kid in February or anything like that. Anybody who's found that's not supposed to be here, I have no problem having them move the following year. I am not in favor of...
I understand that, but I want everybody to understand, come February, when they come back and they said, you haven't done anything, that it's something that's not in our hands, that it's something that the region, it's under their auspices to do those things.
Let's just say this. I think we're in a very good position, considering the new building, considering the interlocal agreement, that I think we have an opportunity to readjust our priorities and to possibly come up with a new idea, maybe a new plan. So this is a good beginning, but it's certainly not the end of the conversation. It's really only the beginning. So what I think is proper is to have those individuals that came to speak to say their piece, so you can hear from those parents that have waited to hear, just for them to say their piece.
Let me just say one thing. I know you guys have been peppered a little bit tonight. Doesn't mean we don't want you back another time.
No, it's just, I think...
I'm not trying to scare you off in the future.
No, but I mean, I think it's important to hear what they have to say, but also keep in mind, for those individuals that came, thank you. But this is not the end of the conversation. This is really only the beginning, and we're going to have a couple more, certainly with our agreement and the new building. So starting off, we have Angela Goldstein. There you go. Please, come on.
Hi, my name is Angela Meyer. I live at 9451 West Broadview Drive, right here on the smaller side of the island. I want to thank everybody for a wonderful town that we live in. We are so fortunate to have this area and the A school that our children attend. However, I walk my children every day to school because on the smaller side of the island, I can't get out of my side of the island. It takes about 3 lights stopping at the red to try to get out. So I walk my children every day to school. And with that, I look at the cars that are driving by us. And I would say probably 3 cars full of children with school shirts on and maybe a work car. 3 cars full of kids with work shirts and a work car. Nobody should be coming over the Bay Harbor Bridge unless they're all running to Dunkin' Donuts first thing in the morning before dropping off their kids to school. Okay? It's really hard. I have a 10-year-old in 5th grade. I have a 6-year-old in 1st grade. In the years that we've been here, we've just seen the numbers grow in the classrooms. And it's hardening because in order to stay in a school, our kids' education, it's going to suffer with all these children that are not here. And on the note about there are so many people that have falsified records to be here, whether they put their grandmother's address, their friend's apartment, they put FPL as they rent the place. We're not doing the proper verifications, whether it be homestead, get the car registration, the license, driver's license is not updated. We're not doing the proper means. And on the note of being Al Capone's accountant for all of us to go out there and drop an anonymous note, that becomes really difficult and challenging. We all want to be part of this community, so we need to do it in the right format and make it the same for everybody, not just people running and telling and writing on a piece of paper, because that's not going to be a proper method. And we want to stay in a school.
All right, thank you for your comments. All right. Saul? Come on. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Saul Zittner. I live in 1369 9th Street. My family and I bought a house here, built a house about 5.5 years ago, primarily for the school. And what we're finding is that it's getting more crowded. The traffic is beyond unbearable in the morning. And this notion that 47 kids or 49 kids are the only kids that are not living here. I don't know what parallel universe you're all living on, but it doesn't exist. And quite frankly, Mr. Salver's idea of we don't want the new building unless we can verify who's here now makes more sense to me, because you're going to create a bigger problem down the road. We're just going to have more space to accommodate more people, more double classes. It doesn't make sense. So I would like to be able to verify who's here before we start construction on the new building. If it's 47 kids, if it's 87 kids, we just freed up a whole bunch of seats in the current school. And if there's an issue with parking and there's an issue with traffic, that's just going to be compounded and become worse and worse. This notion that we're mailing out address verification is obnoxious. I mean, I think at the beginning of every school year, whether it's 2 weeks before or some period of time, every parent needs to come in with their child and have proof, whether it's driver's license, title, I don't know what it is that they need, but whatever it is, we have to verify it. And if you don't do it, the kid doesn't go to school, period, until they provide proof. And if we've got all these schools that are underutilized, they should start peeling off these kids. I feel bad for any child that gets thrown out. I know every parent wants their kid to go to a great school and a great education, but we can't float the bill for all this. We just can't. So, thank you very much for everything you're doing.
All right, thank you for your time. Joyce Green?
Good evening. My name is Joyce Green. I'm Saul Zittner's wife. I live at 1360 99th Street. Interesting thing happened. Angela told me about this meeting. I went on the town website. It was not announced. I spoke to the mayor about it. I'm happy that I'm here. I'm happy with the discussion. And by chance, I told someone about the meeting. And they said, well, we don't live there anymore, but we're using our aunt's address. And in the mornings, the building that we live in North Miami, has a caravan of kids that come to this school. So it can't just be that it's government workers, military. I can tell you that people keep their old driver's license, they falsify records, and they're coming to the school. Our daughter's in 3rd grade with 28 children, which is above the legal limit of 22. How is she supposed to get an education? Why is it that Saul and I, who moved here for this amazing school, have to maybe look at sending her to private school because of the classroom size? And the school is overcrowded. And all these people are in our school that don't belong. It's just wrong. And I hope that you guys put this on the website so we all as parents can keep coming to the meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Victor Meyer?
Victor,
You're up.
you're up.
Victor Maya, 1155 103rd Street. I think the 800-pound gorilla here is immigration, and a fear, that the school system has in terms of identifying individuals, and where they're from, and possibly having a disparate impact on immigrants. I think that is something that is sort of underlying all of this. I will tell you from my own personal experience, when I was 10 and we moved from Miami Beach to Surfside, the system at Biscayne Elementary was, on the first day of school, the secretary and the principal would come into the classroom. Hi, how are you? Introduce you. Has anybody moved, since the last year? And everybody told me, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. And I couldn't, and I raised my hand, and they asked me, where do you live? And I gave them my address, on Carlisle Avenue in Surfside, and she said, well, that's out of the district. He's going to have to move. And, of course, I spent the whole rest of the day crying. And the thing of it is that if you ask the children, if you go into the school tomorrow and you ask them, what's your address? Where do you live? Okay, they're going to tell you the truth. And this sort of notion of, well, mailing and this and that, all of that is initial registration. It doesn't take on what happens from one year to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And you have, K through 8 there. That's, 8 years at least, that somebody could be using an address or not. So I just thought I would relay that to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Any other parents? All right. That being said, so we have our understanding, we have our marching orders, so...
Yeah, I want to add something here.
Yeah.
Because I have a suggestion as well. I could hear the frustration from the folks that chose to attend the meeting, that absolutely more can be done to identify the addresses of these individuals. I know that, Alberto Carvalho has a great relationship with the property appraiser's office, and the property appraiser's office has been fairly successful in identifying what property owners have a homestead exemption, which ones pull the homestead exemption that are not permitted to have it, and I think the assets that they employ to figure out who's who as far as property ownership is concerned perhaps can be employed by the school board also to identify the true residents of the children that are in the system. And I was wondering whether, when you have kids sign up for school, do you have the parents, sign some type of affidavit of residency? And that's a question I'd like answered. Because if you have a parent sign an affidavit of residency, they're signing this document, or they should be signing a document under penalties of perjury, that they in fact live at a certain address. And you can actually have the application go further and say, hey, does this kid take a car to school, or are they going to get dropped off by hand? Just to kind of, reach around and say, okay, hey, look, if the kid's, being driven to school, like Saul and Joyce, they might walk, or Angela might walk their kids to school. And I see a lot of parents from the West Island walking their kids to school, skateboarding with their kids to school, biking their kids to school. So if you ask, are you going to go to school by car? Yes. Bingo. That's a red flag right away. So, I think there's a lot of things that you guys can employ, aside from sending out a newsletter and seeing if it comes back, in order to really enforce people's addresses, and have them sign an affidavit of residency under penalties of perjury. And this way you could say, hey, look, you know what? You lied on your application.
Do I have support here to ask the manager and the chief of police to get with the school board and the school officials and just discuss this possibility of assisting by offering some kind of liaison, or?
We've discussed this. The employee, in order for them to get student identifiable information, must be an employee of Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Yeah, we've already went over this.
So we've already passed
Okay, but regardless of this particular issue, that, the school is growing, we have 7th and 8th grade there now for several years, and maybe you just need some kind of assistance in general. Is that something that you would like to do, or that we should explore?
I'd like to think that if the chief has, I know the chief has a relationship with the school, if there's an issue at the school, that we can, we deal with it like we always have. My concern is this, and let me just give you my 2 cents before we stop this. One is that I think there's an understanding here that we know that there's an issue. There's an understanding that we're going to come back to the table, that we're going to talk about the interlocal agreement. We're going to talk about maybe additional ability to vet the kids coming in. One of the things I also want to make sure is that I don't like the idea of having the children or having the parents be the whistleblowers. I have 3 kids, and I don't want to be the guy to tell my 7-year-old or my 5-year-old that, that dad, got their best friend or whatever, or the kid that just sits next to them out. It's not our responsibility. For all the things that we do, the taxes we pay, the responsibilities that we do have to do, listen, every time the PTA comes to the table, we deliver. This is the one thing that you guys got to do, and it's all on you. Now, I offered our resources. You guys don't want to do it? That's fine. You got to find a way. I don't mind giving, listen, we've already volunteered our kids, our officers. You guys don't want it, you say it's illegal. And by the way, for the record, let me just say, it's been 4 years. I'm still waiting for that legal opinion, by the way. So 4 years, I've been waiting for that legal opinion. I'd like to see it in writing, and I'm putting it on the record. I'm not saying that it's not true, but you say your attorneys say it's not permissible. I'd like to see it in writing. So that's just another thing. Yeah,
One more thing.
To look at it when
Right. I'd like to know why we have private bus services coming on to Bay Harbor, and why we have a private bus bringing children to Bay Harbor. Most of the kids...
it's dropping off or picking up?
Dropping off.
Dropping off.
Picking up. Dropping off. We have a private bus system coming
Maybe
every
that's something-
morning to Bay Harbor, a
When
big
buses
yellow
are coming in
bus.
from North Miami area, and they're filling with more than 47 kids.
Because
There's a
we
little
have to
trigger.
look at every, I know you think it's, you might think that it's silly, but we have a private bus, a yellow big bus coming over North Miami, comes into
Yeah.
Bay Harbor, parks on the side, happy kids, and those kids come out of the bus.
They're happy kids.
They're happy kids,
So-
and
So-
you can start right there.
So let's do this. So we're gonna come back. You're gonna speak to our manager, you're gonna speak to our legal counsel, and we're gonna revisit the issue. And what we're also gonna do for those individuals that are here, we're gonna have the notice for our agenda on the website, so we'll make sure that goes out, so you guys know. And obviously with the PTA, I noticed that our PTA president is here. She'll get the word out to those parents so they can stay in the loop and...
Yeah.
We put the board up on 96.
And I'd like to invite Mr. Carp.
Yeah, we can also...
To come to the next meeting.
For those parents, we can put the board
And let
up.
us know what we
The one coming from the West Island heading east. Yeah. All right. So, yes.
I just want to...
Hold on, guys. Go.
Just one other point, I mean, I understand what you're all saying, but the point I want to make to the school board officials is, I have a son who's in college, and when he went to Ruth K. Broad, a number of his classmates lived in Keystone Point. So this has been going on for a long time, and it seems to me that, over all of these years, that the school board should be able to figure out some reasonable, competent way to verify where the student population lives. I mean, everybody knew that these people lived in Keystone Point, but nobody ever did anything about it. So I think you really need to come up with a solution. It shouldn't be all that difficult. It's been going on for years and years and years.
Yeah, and then last, before we end it, Gerald, why don't you come up? Our school board member, Martin Clark, is represented by Gerald Bloomstein, who's, you probably know better from his wife, who's a teacher, and you live in Surfside, so you've been vetted.
Gerald Bloomstein, 1450 Northeast 2nd Avenue, thank you. Dr. Karp couldn't be here today, but he's been here in the past, and he'll be more than happy to come at the next commission meeting when he's invited, or the following one, so he's looking forward to giving an update as well. But we've been listening, staff's been here, and we thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for coming. We're going to move on with the agenda. Request for... We'll take a moment, so, good night.
Mayor, I'm just so clear, I'm going to be meeting with them on two things.
Oh, I know, we know.
Okay.
Thank you, all right.
2 hours to the
All right, guys, the one thing I'd ask, if you want to talk, if you could talk outside, because we still have the rest of our meeting. Yeah, I know, but
Public comment. After comment, it's on the public comment.
they're schmoozing. All right. Any requests for withdrawals, deferments, future agenda items?
Let me just ask one thing.
Josh?
Ron, did you fix the Scrivener's error so I don't have to pull the thing?
Yes, it will be.
Just make sure that's fixed. Right.
I'll defer 16.
Okay, all right, we're going to defer 16? Okay, anything else? Going once, going twice, sold. All right, Ron, manager's report?
The debris or the mulch is being removed. It should be, the rest of it should go tomorrow. It'll be gone. I know you're happy about that. Brickman, we're working with them. We're going over our landscaping now that we were waiting to see what was going to come back and see if it was, some of it would recover. Some of it is and some of it isn't. So we're compiling that list right now to find out, what we will need to replace. A lot of it was out on the Causeway Island, but there are places within the island that need to be addressed. So we're working on that. Particularly like 99th Street and the Terrace, we had to redo a whole corner. And we're gonna put in some new things there just to kind of test them out. The street lights are being replaced on the East Island. FPL is systematically replacing and doing a better job now of 2 bolts per light. So that's very good. We've ordered a lot of the replacement parts for the West Island. A lot of lights got damaged. So all that's been submitted for insurance, but we purchased the stuff ahead of time.
I'm sorry, on the Cobra heads for the LED lighting on the East Island, was that an issue pertaining to the construction as far as how it was installed?
I would believe so. A lot of it torqued. It's made for 2 bolts and a strap. I think a lot of them was 1 bolt, 1 strap. Now they're all being double bolted. But some of the Cobra heads did blow off, so,
Can we talk to the people that installed that? Because I think that's wrong.
they're making the correction, and obviously it's no cost to the town.
Okay, that's all I want to...
Absolutely no cost.
Okay, that's all.
Even if they're broken, or are they just reinstalling the ones that fell?
The ones that fell and were damaged, the arm is fine, so they just take the head off and put a new one on.
Okay.
But they are, if you notice, they do the double bolt.
Okay, all right.
I have an update on the community pool. The mayor set up a meeting with Miami Shores. I know we talked about this, looking or exploring other places where we could actually, use a pool facility or join another town that had a pool. Miami Shores are open to the idea of us joining their, a pool association or their recreational department, so that we would have access to their pool, all their facilities, as if we were a resident of that town. There would be an annual cost to that, and it would allow us to use that, going on.
Do it done quick.
Okay.
Before they have a second thought.
I will propose something, have it, and send it over. I just wanted to make sure everybody was...
All right, thank you. All right, council reports, we're going to go down the line. Elizabeth? Okay. Kelly?
Many of us went to the annual Best Practices Conference Friday, the Dade League of Cities, and, you have two things there, or actually more. You'll have nice little breakout sessions where, we receive education. Then we have a lot of these vendors like FP&L, and so it gives us an opportunity to give some feedback or to look at new products. And I, for one, spent a lot of time over there. And one of the salesmen who was trying to sign everyone else up for the Cobra headlights like we have, I let him know that they had fallen, and
That's what you were calling it?
I'm sure I'm not the only one, but, we had a very interesting conversation. I don't think he was prepared to speak for this particular project, but, it is just another face-to-face opportunity that we all have. And there was also a very interesting ongoing conversation about the vacation rentals and how we can continue to try new and creative ways to try to regulate them. And that's something that, I'll still be looking into in the future.
Okay, great. Isaac? All right, very good. All right, Josh?
Just be extremely quick. I was at the Best Practices as well as the Community Center Open House, which I'm glad we had a good amount of people that came out to that, and I know we're going to be doing some additional ones in the future. Please come out. The facility is fantastic, and as we do more of these, you can see more of the additional events we are having.
All right, Bob?
I attended both of those events as well. The open house was great, and the Best Practices Seminar, a good experience.
Great. I also attended both, and as always, the Best Practice Conference I thought was, we did, I like to say that I still learn, I gotta tell you, every year it's really, it keeps on getting better, so I'm glad that we keep on investing in the league. That being said, we're moving to item number 5. Can someone get the Vice Mayor to make sure she comes so she knows her item's up?
And Marlene, on the consent, the item was item 12. The Scribner's error was, it's not Bay Harbor Island, Bay Harbor Beach, it's Bay Harbor Islands. That was the catch in the interlocal evidence.
All right, we're on number 5. There's,
why is this under council?
I don't know. Stephanie, your item for number 5.
Well, and can I get an answer? Because it's highly unusual that an item that's a request for approval of something is neither in the consent agenda nor is it in action items.
Yeah.
It's just a very strange way of doing it.
It's not a consent, it was just a council request, so we just put it there because it's...
There's a lot of council requests on the agenda. No, I don't...
No, I understand.
Oh.
I don't know how you held that.
No, it's actually an administrative.
Yeah.
You want to know
I'm
why?
asking first before I made any comment on it.
It wasn't a consent item, and it ended up on the council request, I don't know how. That's the answer.
I think next time it should go on consent, because we can pull it if we need to.
Right, exactly.
Well, it wasn't consent, it was the first time it was provided.
Okay, well,
So do you want to... So the principle of mask
asked me, because we do it for Beach High, and there's about 68 students who now go to Mass from the area and growing. And, you know, in 2019, they'll have a brand-new school at Mass FIU. And so he asked me if we could do a scholarship for the graduating class from Bay Harbor. And I said I would ask, because we do it for Beach High, and, you know, it's not a charter school, it's a magnet program.
Okay, no problem.
I have a question. I looked on the website, and I think they dole it out in $500 increments. Do you know?
He did not say. He only asked me for 1,000, but whatever way we want to do it, if we want to do 2 500s or 1,000, and, you know, those kids who go there can get a 2-year free 2-year degree from FIU, because they can do dual enrollment at FIU.
That's great.
I had the town clerk print out a resolution that we passed in 2005 that kind of dictates how the council, it's a resolution that says how the council should give charity, and I'm presuming that this is a charitable item. I think it's a kind of, although I agree in concept with what you're presenting here, I think it's a bad precedent, because I know, there's probably 50 kids that go to Hebrew Academy, there's probably another 30 kids that go to Miami Country Day, there's other kids that go to charter schools that are part of the school system, but they're not public schools, they're charter schools, like doctors' charter schools. I understand, our scholarships right now are limited to schools in our feeder pattern. That school is not in our feeder pattern.
But it's not in any...
So, in my opinion, this is tantamount to making a donation to a school, which I think we resolved that we weren't going to, entertain donations. Can I finish talking?
Yes, sure.
That we were going to we were only entertain donations, under certain circumstances.
Okay, well, first of all, it's not a charter school, nor is it it's a magnet school that doesn't have a feeder pattern, because you have to have a certain educational criteria. You have to be wanting to go into the math and sciences. So but it is in the north end of the district, which there are very few magnet programs in this area, and this program has been growing. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't, don't. But I think, it's, the reason that he asked me was because there's more and more kids who are coming out of Bay Harbor who are going, who are looking. Over 63 children.
Just for the Bay Harbor Island students, correct, is what we're talking about?
Yes, it would be.
Recognize the top student from Ruth K. Broad and Nautilus and...
Right, that's what we do.
Right.
All right,
I'm just curious, because I remember, when my kids were growing up, a number of kids from this community went to Crop because we're magnet programs at Crop.
Right.
So, if there are other magnet programs elsewhere, how do you determine under what parameters you would have a similar type of program?
They asked first.
That's why we have a resolution.
I'm just raising the...
Responses to that. We have a resolution responding to that, because people used to ask for charity from us, and we're not a foundation. We're a municipality.
But this is an award, it's a little bit, I understand what you're saying about the resolution, but this is sort of...
All right, Victor,
I agree 100% with Isaac, and that was my initial thought, was how many other schools, do we have students from? And I was thinking of Hillel, in North Miami, and then there are a bunch of others, and then, frankly, I got a bit, skeptical, and I figured, okay, well, who is looking to get this money? And why did they come to you, Stephanie? And, I'm very suspicious, of the circumstances. And so, to me, I think if we go down this road, next week you're going to have a resolution from somebody wanting a scholarship for all kinds of different schools. And this is a terrible precedent. I think the circumstances are, let's see the letters, let's see the communications, let's see something from this school asking you, who in particular. I just think that this is the wrong way to go. This is $1,000. It's a lot of money, and we need to be careful with how we're spending our money. Thank you.
All right, well...
Can I just have one other question?
Yeah, Bob.
Did the person that you spoke to indicate that... The principal, excuse me. Did the principal indicate that there are other communities that have, the student population there who have
Well, they're just
similar rewards?
Well, they're just starting it this year because they finally have grown to the capacity. I mean, they started off... Yeah, they've been in portables. So now in 2019, they will be finally a school. And so they are going out to Sunny Isles and Highland Oaks also asking for scholarships. I mean, like I said, he came to me and asked me if I was, it's like I said, yes, yes, no, no.
All right.
Kathy wants to know.
Well, that's on good welfare, so, I mean, I don't see an issue with that. All's in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Okay, against. All right, passes. We're going to go now to public comment. So we have Kathleen Kennedy, come on up.
Kathleen Kennedy, 9180 West Bay Harbor Drive. Just to go to the grand opening, thanks for showing up, Josh. We got 40 people signed up for programs in the community center that day. It was a great job, JC and Ron, it was wonderful, and for those that showed up. I heard that this council is now the Wild Wild West. I just became a member of the next door, whatever that thing is. And to my amazement, I heard that all of you are carrying guns. So, are you all cowboys up there? What's going on here? Are you guys carrying guns? This is ridiculous. And whoever put your picture up there ought to be ashamed of themselves.
I wasn't the only one, Josh. Was there, Isaac?
Was I?
Isaac, you're in that picture. Are you carrying a gun?
I mean, now.
Jordan, are you carrying a gun?
No.
And the replies are ridiculous. They're saying, oh, we are afraid to come to the chambers because now the council has guns. Check next door. It's ridiculous what's going on up. Marlene, have you seen it? I mean, we gotta stop this nonsense. This is fake news. So, and the fact that your pictures are up there, you all have kids, you all have families, and I don't think it's right that your picture should be up on the website saying that you got guns and you're this and you're that. So I would like you guys to speak up and stop this nonsense about posting your pictures and you're having your kids see this nonsense that we need, what do you call that, to frisk us down walking in here because you guys are going to shoot us? I mean, really? Come on. We're better than this.
Remember, we can't stop people from posting false.
Yeah, but you know what? Your picture shouldn't be up there saying that you're carrying guns.
I agree, but we can't stop
unfortunately, sometimes people make irresponsible comments on these public websites, and
I'm a resident, Bob.
I know who it was.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saying, and I had people emailing me and questioning me about, whether anybody here brings a gun to a council meeting, and of course we don't.
And just for the record, it is against state law.
Any building.
That, just for the record, for anyone's edification, it is against Florida law to carry a firearm into a public building and certainly any public meeting, unless if the individual is law enforcement. So, that being said, the council is not exempt from that statute, so the way it stands is none of us do, and it is illegal. And it's just, I think you said it, you used the term fake news. I think
Absolutely.
I would say I'm going to take the high road, and when they go low, we go high, and we're just going to leave it at that.
And that's the reason why we have our fine cops here, at the door, because, for whatever. They've escorted me out of here, but that was okay. I didn't have a gun.
All right, thank you. All right, we have Eli Minsky. Good evening.
Hi, Eli Minsky, 9976 East Bay Harbor Drive. Thanks for taking the time and letting me speak. Thanks to council and town managers. Last November, there was a code amendment brought to you guys' attention about feeding animals on town property. We said that they would reconvene in January of this year. However, I checked the minutes and nothing was reconvened. I'm new to the island. I just moved here in April. My sister has lived here for 4 years before that, my brother 6 years before that. There is a cat problem on the East Island. There are people that feed cats, and they're stray cats, and whether they're fixed or not does not mean they're not dangerous. And it's happened on a few occasions with my fiance, where she's walking a cat at night, and a cat charges at her, and my puppy, and that's not okay. My sister, when she gave birth about a year ago, her house was infested with fleas, and she had to leave until it got tented and was able to move back 2 weeks later. I talked to a lot of neighbors. A lot of neighbors have the same concerns. However, unfortunately, they don't have the voice, or they don't feel the need to come and talk to you guys. So I felt, it should be up to us to come to you and ask that this amendment or code or anything, motion, be brought back to your attention, and if you guys can please, listen to it, talk about it amongst yourselves and find a resolution. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Ron, can you come back at the next meeting with some suggestions possible? Can you do that?
We might have something on the books. I remember, let me tell you, Eli, I just want to mention something. First of all, thank you for coming. And second of all, sorry for making you wait until 9:15.
It was entertaining though, wasn't it? Apologize to her.
I don't know if you realize this, but the issue of cats in general is a very divisive and inflammatory issue. Because I know that, Bob and I are probably the oldest, well, not the oldest, but the longest-serving members of this council. And, there were a couple of meetings that we had that involved cats, and you put something on the agenda with the word cats, and you're going to bring out, people are going to come. Not just like people came from the school. People will come and fill up the entire chambers, and it'll be like people in red shirts that are, save the cats, and people in blue shirts, the opposite. And it's, and I think, I don't know if Ron has any information relating to what we have on the books, but I'm presuming that we do have some ordinances about...
There is some stuff on it. The ordinance that it came up, and it wasn't Mr. Minsky or somebody else that brought it up, is just that I didn't think we should be feeding them in the parking lot or on the swale. If you wanted to feed the cats in your property, you could do it.
Right.
Because it invited, other little critters to hop around, not just the cats. Because they're not the only ones who eat the food. You have other things.
Isn't it help?
100%.
Yeah, so that was really it. And, you'll see at certain times, 103rd Street lot, 99th Street lot, the cats kind of congregate at certain times. That was really it, and we talked about it, and we didn't go any further with it.
I'd like to say that that's a symptom of a greater problem. We have a cat population problem that we need to head off. And with the assistance of County Commissioner Sally Hayman, we've brought the spay and neuter truck here. There was a time, I think maybe 10 years ago, when we were buying the coupons, the certificates to help fix the cats. So in addition to whatever the manager is going to suggest, I would like everybody to think about that we make some kind of a contribution towards reducing the cat population, because just simply stopping, putting the food down, and it's not going to help. It'll make them more angry. But I would like to solve the problem.
But we have to collect these cats.
Well, if you don't voluntarily. No, I'm saying, certainly we could begin enforcement of what Mr. Minsky's talking about, like if people are feeding cats in the swales in the public parking lots.
It needs to be adopted.
There's nothing to enforce yet.
That people are feeding all over the place, so if they come back and they feed them on their property, it's still going to happen. I mean, you walk around and people are feeding...
I'm going to tell you who he's talking about. There's literally a cat lady, because I know, because she comes to my block.
This is cat mail.
You have a cat man. I have a cat lady. I live on 102nd Street, and the cat lady comes, and she pulls up every day at like 5 o'clock, and she calls the cats, and they come. And she pours out the food, and she has like 7 or 8 stops, and keeps them toodles on around.
Okay, Ron, can you come back next meeting with some recommendations, and maybe it's, more than one?
Well, I mean, if we have something on the books right now about, that prohibits the public feeding of animals, or, public feeding of animals on public property or on government property, that has to be taken down.
It has never been codified. It's not in the book.
Anyone could go to the parking lot and feed the animals. So let's come back with some suggestions for the next meeting, okay? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Vincent Martino.
People live for their kids.
So look forward to that discussion.
Good evening, Vincent Martino, 1050 93rd Street. I'd like to begin by thanking Councilperson Reed and Mayor Leonard for contacting me before and after the hurricane regarding my family's well-being and the safety of the members of our condo association, so I do appreciate it very much. Hope everybody here fared pretty well. I'd also like to thank Ron Lawson and his team for doing an outstanding job cleaning up our streets following the storm. I think 93rd Street was clean on, I think it was Thursday after the storm, so that was an outstanding job. Thank you very much. The reason why I'm here tonight is to ask the town council to adopt an ordinance that would require all property owners to remove uprooted and damaged trees in a timely manner from their property following a weather event. The ordinance would allow a property owner a specific number of days to remove debris or be subject to a fine. If the owner fails to remove the debris by the specified time, the debris should be removed by the town's landscaping company or a second party. The owner can then be presented with the bill for services. I'm still waiting for the owner of the property adjacent to the Stewart House, that address is 1020 93rd Street, to remove several large uprooted trees that came down during the hurricane. I've discussed this situation with Ron, and he's mediated it for us. The trees should be removed within a few days, I believe, and that's great, but the storm has been about 5 or 6 weeks now old, and as we know, leaving debris around attracts rodents, etc., and if we had another storm on the heels of that, which can happen, those trees can become projectiles, limbs, etc. So I'd appreciate that, for you to consider that. I also say I'm going to add this item number 22 on tonight's agenda to address trees and their proximity to power lines. I believe there's a 5-foot zone that we have now to that. I would like to add that the large trees throughout the east and west island be trimmed on a regular basis. The island had numerous overgrown trees that were either partially or completely destroyed during the hurricane. Had these overgrown trees been trimmed, many likely would be standing today. I'm going to leave you with some pictures of some overgrown trees that you can see. There's no reason why these trees should be 8 stories high. It just doesn't make sense. When we have a storm, they fall, and there's a problem. So I'm going to leave you with that. Ron has some other pictures that I gave him. Thank you again for your service.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So I leave it with Marlene?
Yes. You got Marlene.
Yeah?
Don't we have a provision in the code, I know they can get decided when they dead trees on their property and they...
Dead trees?
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Today, yes.
Right.
It's a code issue.
So we can amend that then, provision to take into account trees that are knocked over, that cannot be...
Code actually they're working on this. Yeah, the code.
Yeah, they already have notified the owners, and have given them 10 days to clear it, and if after 10 days they don't clear it, then they go and do it. We go and do it
I guess
ourselves.
the question is the code provision that we have now sufficient to cover the types of, it
doesn't matter.
Down trees that Mr. Martino mentioned?
Probably not, and usually the county issues an order that within 30 days there are no violations after a hurricane. They did that this time too, in Miami-Dade County, which would also be us. So we have to really look at this and see, because a major disaster like this, they usually give people, and they're a little more lenient, time to take care of the issues. I understand it's been 5 weeks.
No, within a reasonable time, whatever that is.
So
but we have to look at this a little more in depth.
We're going to get
I just wanted to know whether our ordinance covered it, whether we need to...
It's not geared to this.
Okay, so we should look at...
We should look at
the
something.
revision to the ordinance.
It's an important issue, I think. Okay, thanks very much. Again, thanks for your service.
All right, Victor Amaya. Oh, Ron?
Oh, yes, I'm up here, so start the clock.
Go ahead.
Victor Maya, 1155 103rd Street. And, Mr. Lawson, I wasn't here at the last council meeting, and I didn't get a chance to thank you and your staff for everything that y'all did in terms of preparing this town for the storm and dealing with its aftermath. A truly amazing job, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Appreciate it, thank you.
At the last meeting that I was at in August, there was an issue regarding a donation to some fund that was out somewhere in Broward County. And there was discussion about the how tenuous the relation was with the town in terms of whether we should provide this donation or not. This was in August. The town council at the time, I think it wasn't very clear to me, voted no on providing that donation on a voice vote. And it was very confusing to me because I couldn't tell who voted yes and who voted no. There was no, or who didn't vote at all. There was no accountability. I went back to look at the tapes to see, exactly how it was determined that it was voted no. And I think that we should be able to determine, what things you guys vote for and what you don't. I mean, that's what you're here for. And when we have trouble figuring it out, I think that's a little bit disingenuous. And I think that I wasn't going to mention it except for it happened again just now with the issue regarding the this $1,000 scholarship. Again, there wasn't a clear indication as to who was in favor of it and who was not and who said no. And I think that it's something that we should have an opportunity to know where you stand on. And I think just rushing through, yes, no, yes, passes, no passes. You're sitting out here, and it's hard to tell. And it's even harder to tell on the video because not all of you speak into your mics, and hear and clear. And so I think that's something, Mr. Mayor, that I would appreciate if you gave us a little bit more clarity in terms of, the votes, that are taken, whether they be oral, verbal, hands, no hands, and that sort of thing, so that we know. Finally, I guess if you had $1,000 to give, you may give it towards the spay and neutering program for the cats on the island. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Francis Newhut?
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. Although aesthetically and superficially, the business district is more beautiful than Hillside, North Beach, Sunny Isles, North Bay Village, and many other municipalities. For over 30 years, I am still asked why this place looks deserted and why both retail and commercial businesses cannot make it. First of all, it is not very encouraging when the town planner, who is also the town planner for Bal Harbor, colors the town's business district map stating no retail potential. 2, there is no coherent plan for the business district. Whoever comes are allowed with uses not permitted in other successful business districts, preschools, churches, ground floor offices, etc., with government recently eliminating parking requirements. 3, granting business tax receipts, occupational licenses to almost any use. 4, ignoring parking, with allegedly ignoring the business district's parking trust. 5, no promotion and or pretending the business district does not exist. And 6, mixed use allowing state-subsidized housing above the ground floor. 7, facilitating a church to take over plus or minus 10 prime lots in the business district with unsafe parking and ignoring the rent this brings to the business district and community. 8, ultimate insult, raising real estate taxes 156% this year with the aim of destroying purposely the entire business district. 9, recently, too many cheap-looking signs are being installed. And 10, destroying storefront
Sorry,
windows.
cheap-looking what being installed? Signs, excuse me.
And note, government putting tremendous telephone poles, garbage cans, signs, bus stops, and removal of decorative lights in front of businesses. Grubby workmen eliminating parking and parking meters can only cause more destruction to the town's business district. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. We're going to move on now. That's the end of public comment. Item number 6, planning and zoning. We have a piece of paper on each of our desks. Is there anyone here that applied to be on planning and zoning that wishes to speak? Anyone? All right, done with that. I guess vote.
Yes, please. I provided the sheets on your desk.
Since we're running, we have a tight agenda, we're going to just move on while you count these, and we'll take it from there. Okay?
Mayor, can we move up item 22 about the trees, since we were just talking about trees, to maybe after the consent agenda?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Moving it up to...
All right, we're going to, any item on the consent agenda someone wants to pull? Anything?
Yes, number 7.
Number 7, anything else? All right, hearing none, can we get, I'll ask for, I guess we don't need a poll vote, so all those in favor by saying aye? Aye. Anyone against? No one against, unanimous. Number 7.
Yeah, I'm just...
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
You want to read it?
Yeah.
Approval of a resolution requested by Councilmember Yaffe and Councilmember Salver opposing legislative efforts to impede municipal home rule powers.
All right, Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, I had a question about this, and I think it's just, we all understand what actually these first 5 or so are all about. But Bob, if you wouldn't mind giving a real quick Reader's Digest, because we're not challenging the home rule, we're not trying to get it. Can you just maybe give a little bit of a legislative overview and what this means to us?
Well, I think that, in general, the legislature is trying to usurp home rule and move powers to Tallahassee, whether it's, regulation of business districts, certain taxes, zoning codes, and so forth, which, we were at I'm not sure which presentations you attended at the best practices, but one of the earlier ones, which a number of us attended, talked about home rule and the efforts of the legislature to take away some of, the municipal authority. There's even a question about the constitutionality of that. But in any event, there was House Bill 17, I think it was last legislative session, which could have been very damaging to municipalities. And the supposition is that there will be another bill of that type. And there's a lot of other activities that maybe don't target a specific power, but in general seek to take away home rule or impede upon home rule. So the committee that I was on and some of the other committees suggested a general resolution basically opposing any legislative action that would impede upon or interfere with home rule powers of
This is just
municipalities.
supporting the legislature to do good things for Bay Harbor, just to clarify for the viewing audience.
Right. In other words, to leave us be and let us exercise the powers that we're entitled by the Constitution and the Miami-Dade County Charter to exercise. Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of being a law professor?
We have public comment for item number 7, but I will hold you to the actual subject at hand. It's in regards to home rule. So Francis Newhut, come on down.
Mayor, I can't give you an answer about planning and zoning. I have to have 5 votes. You have to vote again.
What was the vote?
I have 1 for Mark Gidney, 1 for Wesley, is Keene, I think, and, 3 for Wesley, 2 for Patricia, 1 for Roger.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry,
Okay, Francis Newhut.
Okay, on the subject matter, it's home rule powers. And I wanted this...
I'm sorry. Can we make it like a runoff? Like, just...
We've done that before,
Yes.
so that we
Top 2.
Wesley and Patricia are the top 2.
Okay. All right. Please.
Okay, to stay on the subject matter, we're talking about home rule. home rule powers. And if you look under Section 104, Powers of the Town, it actually states in the charter amendment about exercising the home rule. And what I find disturbing in this charter, okay, and you have had this on the books for quite some time, since 2008, this charter that you wrote. And we trusted you with this town charter. And some of the things that the home rule has really, I hate to say, screwed up, is what's on here now. And you could start with the Ordinance and Review Committee. The people who wrote this charter and made it so difficult during elections, and we have no term limits. We have no term limits and also an elected mayor. Okay? This was done by these people because I was there when these people voted for it. And the four people that are sitting at this council right now are the ones who voted for it with a town attorney guiding them who's in Bal Harbor. Isn't that nice? Okay? But besides that, just to give you an idea of home rule, we have, with you having the powers to govern yourselves, you have completely destroyed historic preservation. You have actually gotten rid of everything and everyone. I don't even think I ever see Terry D'Amico anymore. I think it's gone. Okay? We don't have one. And the Storer building, that's gone. You didn't even discuss it before you knocked it down or gave a demolition permit late. The other thing is it says here about you're in charge of passageways and streets and sidewalks. Well, guess what? You're the ones who put this green stripe all around our sidewalks, our street on the East Island. Can we fit anyone besides one person walking, if a bicycle or anyone else comes by? What's
Thank you
ramble
for your
time?
comments, Ms.
So I don't trust you
Thank you for your
to
comments.
being self-governing.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, all's in favor for 7? Aye. Anyone against? Unanimous. We are moving on to
Mr. Keene, Wesley Keene.
Wesley Keene. Congratulations to Mr. Keene. His big shoes to fill. Number 13.
I thought we were...
Oh, you didn't want to go to 22?
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Discussion
Number
requested by Mayor Leonard regarding town's regulations for trees growing at the power lines.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Bob. I brought this up because, this is kind of the other 800-pound gorilla that, or pink elephant or whatever that everyone's been talking about, which is, we certainly had a lot of trees that had to get cut in order to restore power. And, I could tell you I was behind a lot of homes after the hurricane. I'm sure other people have also, where, they had to cut a lot of trees. And to be honest, the town probably could be a little bit more forceful when it comes to enforcing our law, or maybe perhaps we need to, make some changes to the current ordinance in order to ensure that the next time a storm comes, because it will come, that those trees are not in the path of the power lines and they're trimmed appropriately, and we hold people to it, because unfortunately, when you have a tree on someone's property, it can affect not just your neighbor, but a couple blocks down. I know on the East Island, on East B. Hubbard Drive, that was some of the last properties to restore power. That was more than 2 city blocks that didn't have power because of one tree. I know that there were different clusters on the north side of the West Island. That was some of the last homes to get power back, and they had to cut down a lot of trees in order to get that power restored, and that not only caused the power to go out, but to be quite honest, delayed the time for power to be restored. And that's really important also, because we all expect that power is gonna lose power potentially, but the fact is that when some people lose power for 2 to 3 to 4 times as long as their neighbors, it's a tough pill to swallow. So,
Jordan?
Yeah.
Oh, if you're done, I said.
No, I was gonna say, I wanted to get code enforcement's perception as to what we can do to possibly reinforce what we have. So,
can I just...
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to, we've met with FPL officials a number of times. Ron, you and I met a couple of times, and I agree with everything that you said, Jordan. Part of the problem is getting FPL to do something, because
you know, in a lot of the backyards, they're so overgrown that our gardeners or the homeowners are not going to touch these trees or touch, you know, this foliage because it could be dangerous. And so you need FPL to come out there and trim it down to a certain level and then impose, you know, the burden upon the property owner to maintain it after it's down to a certain level. And a couple of years ago when FPL came out and we talked about, you know, the situation, and this had nothing to do with storms at the time. I mean, I live in a grid that goes out all the time, even on sunny days. And FPL went and they put some hang tags on properties along East Broadview Drive and maybe other areas. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It was more informational than anything else, and I think it was sort of like an invitation, if you've got, you know, an issue, call us. So it's not, you know, I think it really starts with FPL, and I don't know if there's anything in our franchise agreement or whatever it is, or whatever agreement we have with FPL that we can put some more pressure on them. I'm not suggesting that we sue them at this point, but until we can get some of that foliage trimmed back, and a lot of it's probably gone now because of like the 99 trees that they cut out on 99th Street, but and you know, 102nd Street, portions of that street, not my house, but other portions were out for, you know, a good week also because of trees that had knocked down, you know, lines and so forth. So
It's double-edged sword. There's no doubt. FP&L wants you to hold their hand going into their backyards. That's really a public relations issue. As far as the code, Marlene can speak to that, but it gets into this catch-22 situation. You can't get into the backyard unless you're invited in or somebody lets you into their backyard. If anything gets within 5 feet, a regular landscaper can't even touch it because either FPL has to do it or they have to get a licensed contractor that can do it. There's only 2. We're talking to Brickman today. Brickman used to have that license. They don't have it anymore. It's Asplund, and it wasn't Luke's, but something like it. Lewis. And to go in, I don't think we have the right and to just say, hey, listen, we know they're within 5 feet. We're getting close. We're coming in, and we're gonna do the work and bill you. I would love to do that. I mean, I have no qualms doing it. The FPL has all the power under the Public Service Commission. They can do anything near their lines. They're well within their rights. But they just kind of like don't want to be the bad guy for some reason.
And let me remind residents, it behooves them to actually maintain these trees, because a lot of the residents want to make sure they have these trees in their backyards. If you maintain them, you get to keep them at those levels. If you let them get overgrown and something happens and FPL decides to come in, trust me, they don't have that much care for how long that tree's going to live. They're going to hack away. And the end result is not going to be what you want. If you maintain them your own way and you keep them away from the power lines, you'll be a lot happier.
And there's actually an active suit, isn't there? Coral Gables has a suit for, I know Craig Lean initiated a suit in regards to the city of Coral Gables. He's their city attorney about this issue. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of power with FP&L, unfortunately. But is there anything we can do from a code enforcement perspective?
Well, the issue is the power lines in the backyard.
Yeah, I know. But
And because we can see the ones, obviously, that are in the perimeter. And sometimes it's not so easy to determine where the tree is. When you're looking from the street, you have to go in the back and determine whose tree it is. Other times it's a nightmare because the tree is right on the property line, and then the people are fighting over whose trees it is, and they don't want to cut it down. It's a problem, but it's a multi-pronged problem. It's an FPL problem, it's some code enforcement, but it's also because we have, and I probably the town planner doesn't agree with me, I already said it to him, because we have regulations to say that you have to have in a single-family home on the interior at least 5 trees. Well, you only have some opportunities to put the trees, so they end up in the front and then they end up in the backyard. Because you have to come up with 5. It's even more in the waterfront. That's not an issue because it's not in the backyard. So we have competing interests.
All right.
So I just want to mention one other thing because it's not. I mean, the backyards are a big problem, but the perimeter streets, along East Broadview, West Broadview, they're a big problem also because we have royal palms and that grow up below the line.
We planted a lot.
Okay, but what I'm saying,
we planted a lot of it.
But then maybe we should.
We're a violator of our own.
Then maybe we should take them down because a number of the power failures that have affected the 28 homes in my grid are caused on bright sunny days by palm fronds just naturally falling off and striking a line, and then you've got to, you wait the hours for FPL to come. I don't know why we permit those trees to remain, I guess is...
Well, we did the survey, and we came up with about 60 to 70 trees that are near power lines that are on the perimeter. And we were getting prices for that, but it's very hard at this time to get prices. Back then, it was like you have to wait till the season, the right time to get the tree bids. And there's only a few companies that do it. We are relocating some of the trees right by you, because, we recognize on Broadview Terrace, there were several Royals that have grown very quickly, and now they're up in the power lines. We are going to move them out and just move them across the street. You'd be surprised, at the time of the project, the community enhancements, it was fighting tooth and nail with some of the residents. They wanted those Royals.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it was to the point, and when they went in, they weren't that big, they were large, but they got there pretty fast. So,
How about if we leave the trees and underground the wires?
And make Mexico pay.
I will say this, I spoke to Alita Playa at the best conferences, the best practices, and I have a meeting set up with her, and within 2 years, they're going to be replacing or coming in to do a lot of the poles in the backyards. We've been suggesting going to concrete and then undergrounding from the pole to the house, where a lot of the homes have the old
But who's
weather
gonna
heads.
pay? So, I was prepared, my house is I'm already underground to the...
To the pole.
To the pole, because I thought we were, at the time, gonna get underground, so I did that already. Is that gonna be the responsibility of
I think one of the things that came to our attention recently was, we've been asking people who do new homes construction, we require the undergrounding. But it was a building department policy, and it's been enforced for years. But it's really not codified.
Mm-hmm.
So we really should put that in the code. This way it removes any doubt. And traditionally, it's always, the little old lady that's, why do I have to do it? And I'm just, it's an inconvenience. But those are the houses, like, even when we were talking about clear cutting, and the FPL did clear cut, or the contractors came through, you'd be surprised a couple of those people came in and were, really complaining, why did they have to cut the trees, and what am I going to do with all the vegetation in the backyard now? And they were telling me, right, these are the guys that complained. This is your main culprit. This took down the wire that took out the block. So I think going forward, putting that in the code would be a good step. Getting concrete poles behind the homes would go a long way too, make them a little tougher.
So would we do we have a consensus to have Marlene put something in the code that Ron would like?
We are going to work together, especially on that service line, because it doesn't specifically say service line, so it was interpreted that it should be on the line, that's an easy one. The bigger issue is the trees, and what do we do about that, and how do we attack it, and I think there's got to be different ways. One of the new developments brought to our attention recently that they had royal palms on the plan in front of their development, and they can't underground because FPL won't let them, and as soon as those get to a certain height, it's going to be a problem. So there's other species that don't get as tall that was recommended. I think was it Washingtonians? Was it Washingtonians or palms or foxtails? Something to that effect. But the Royals are a problem and are going to be a problem.
Encourage any of the...
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe
We just need to think through the species a little.
FPL gives you a whole list of trees they're allowed to use. FPL gives you a whole list of trees that they're allowed to use.
In reference to the undergrounding on the East Island, where, the new developments used to be required, and the FPL needs, 1,000 feet?
1,000 or 1,500 feet, that's what they told us.
So do we have areas where we have older buildings, new development, and so on, that we could try to get everybody to agree to volunteer?
Right now, all I have is just any new development that's going up, we request that they put in the conduit, and that's basically in anticipation of that.
Yeah, I would just maybe take another look at areas, because I know my neighbors and I have talked about doing it somehow voluntarily, and, completing the 1,000 feet, not just for aesthetics, but definitely to reduce the loss of power during the storms. And then I know you had recently sent us a very timely report. Surfside had a meeting, I think, and you put together some information. Maybe after the storm, you must get a lot of requests for the undergrounding?
Yes, a lot. There was. But everybody does. Everybody puts it in.
Okay.
So,
Because maybe it won't be a dead issue. Maybe we can try to think outside the box and try to partner or, do something. 'Cause I think it's definitely, undergrounding would be a wonderful bone aesthetically, and it's got to reduce the amount of downtime without power.
in that, I think I sent that out to everybody, just through an email, just to let everybody know it's not a magic bullet, and there was a good question and answer portion with that, and a lot of the questions that people have, it goes to answer them. It goes to what to expect with undergrounding. So, it's not perfect, but it's...
I can tell you what to expect. It not to happen. No, Weston, there's a plan that was developed with underground utilities.
And
it's just impossible.
It doesn't flood.
Bob, do we need 100% cooperation from every property owner to do undergrounding?
Well, I understood that we need easements, isn't that part of the...
Right, so there's some level of cooperation that is required from 100% of the property owners.
Every property owner has to sign an easement.
Right.
Correct. So when they do the plans, they don't have to worry about where they're going to put the cabinets.
Right, plus you have to move your service, underground, and if people don't move their service underground, then...
Right. And if you have an older service or an older panel...
Right.
Replace the panel. I know, believe me, I did both of them.
Me too.
And, it's very, very expensive. You're going to take, you're going to tell some of the older residents that are on fixed incomes that, well, you got to spend $5,000 today on your, whatever.
They're not going to sign.
They're not going to sign. They're going to, the only thing you're going to hear from them is just slamming the door in your face.
And if I really get it done and we flood, then we're out for a while anyways. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the other
That's
thing.
the problem.
Okay.
Ron, I just want to say one... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was just say, Ron, you said they were talking concrete poles, FPL within 2 years?
In
2 years? Okay, 2 years from now, I'm going to see what's going to happen. We'll come back at this meeting and see what happens. Yeah, exactly. I'm not holding my
Because the
breath.
phone, you won't have that phone, so you'll have to sync it to the new phone.
I need your phone. I need your address, please.
Hi, good evening. Hillary Frankel, 1231 99th Street, Bay Harbor. I've lived here probably longer than any of you. Okay, so I live 99th Street. We had very big issues with trees in our things. During Wilma, our mango tree fell, and we had all our Christmas palms in the trees, in the lines. So we immediately cut all our lines, and we never put anything, it's just like fence height, which are maybe 2 feet, 3 feet. Nothing very high. Our backyard neighbor did fishtail palms. Love my backyard neighbor, but she's not very responsible. So I would go and I would call FP&L on a regular basis. My kid would be out there, please come and do it. Lewis comes out, they cut the one branch that's touching the line, and then they leave. They would do this. I'm sorry if I'm going to put people on the offensive here, or the defensive, but I told JC and Ron before the storm, when they were doing a little thing, my neighbor has trees in the lines, can you please do something? I told code enforcement, my neighbor has trees on the lines, can you please do something? At least a month prior to Wilma, nothing. Okay? So I am free to tattle on my neighbors because this is a very important issue, because I don't like being without power for 8 days. So I don't understand why I can get a dirty roof code enforcement violation. In the meantime, you can clearly see even on East Broadview, I can give you the names of people right now, I don't care, that they have trees in the lines. So it's very easy to see, it's not a hard thing, and also, your concrete poles, you're gonna need a helicopter to come in, because that's what the guys who trimmed our thing. Also, if you look, come to my house, more than welcome, come on over, go on the west side, go through the gate. My trees were cut, I don't care if I'm going beyond, all the way down, all the way down. Go to another house, go to any other street, and they were not cut all the way down. They cut the minimum, and that's why, again, they had the issue on 98th Street.
Okay.
So you really have to be proactive and don't worry about offending anybody.
Right.
No, we're not gonna...
Didn't we have a thing where we went, I remember, around town, and we were going and looking prior to hurricane and seeing what needed to be cut and making our list and checking it twice?
Every April or May, we start what we can see.
FPL did do a sweep through, but I don't think they got to the level, and the reason why there were different levels, I believe, and this is before or after storm?
Before what?
Yeah, the different levels, the different
Oh,
levels.
no,
That's
it was
before.
because
That's before.
the people that Judd got, which, a whole nother issue, Judd's my husband, we told them specifically, cut them so they cannot grow, ever.
But
So they need to replant.
Do we require the homeowner to cut back the trees?
Yes, they're supposed to cut it until it gets...
It's a matter of seeing it,
Within
that's what they're
5 feet
saying.
from it.
So they can't
Yes.
do it if it's beyond a certain height. They have to wait for FPL to come, or one of FPL's
One, two
contractors.
tree will come out, they're very expensive. However, if you can afford to plant a royal palm in your front yard, you should be able to afford to maintain it. And if you can't maintain it, then you should not plant that tree.
All right,
Okay, thank you. Francis Newhart?
Yeah.
And by the way, we have plenty of residents that came in and complained about how FPL cut their trees. about FPL cut their trees.
Do we have some regulation ordinance that prohibits the planting of oil palms within a certain distance of a power line?
That was what I was saying, that we need to amend our ordinance.
Right, okay.
All right, so we can work on that. All right, Brent.
Francis Newhart, 1060 King Concourse, and I am going to defend trees. And the reason for that is because you have a code and a responsibility to this town, and you just said that you want to continue with your home rule codes. It says here under 104 with your powers of the town that you are required any and all wires, poles, pipes, and other facilities to be placed and maintained underground. Hello? I have no lights in the alleyway of the businesses behind our business. And guess what? There are no trees. But I don't have any power. I have no lights in the alley there. I've been complaining about them. Okay, so are we really complaining about trees? Are we allowing developers to cut down every freaking tree on their property so they can build whatever they want and never see a tree again? You go to the parks, you cut down all their trees. I put my kids on the sliding or whatever. There are no trees to protect them. It's burning hot. I mean, why are you trying to get rid of these trees? Yes, we have codes. We have codes that say with new development, they have to underground. And also, the dangers of these not undergrounding. I think Salva touched on that subject matter, and that was something about how dangerous it is with the radiation or something. I have the name of it. It's called electromagnetic fields, EMFs. And you just put one on a new project. You can kill yourself. I mean, you're going to have cancer living in that place. Many years ago, when my children were 8 years old, which is quite some time ago, in the back of one of their friends' properties had a telephone pole with wires damaged. And this kid came down with cancer. And they couldn't figure out why or where, and they examined those. In those days, they didn't have MF, they couldn't prove it. But the wires were dangling, they weren't taken care of, and FP&L, they listen to you. This is a town that requires it on your laws. So I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, thank you for your
Stop destroying our trees.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to come back next Okay, thank you. All right, item number, we're going to come back.
What are we coming back with?
You said you were going to make those changes to the code. And then,
There's a suggestion for revised code.
and then, so we'll bring that up. And I know we're also going to talk to Epicano too. Number 13,
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on second reading requested by Councilmember Salver, amending Section 5-5 of the town regarding the current parking plan for construction sites.
Known as the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Section 5-5 of the Bay Harbor Islands Town Code of Ordinances requiring a staging plan of single-family, multiple family, and commercial projects, providing for penalties, providing for several providing for qualification,
I'll second it.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I hear none. Poll vote?
No, hold on.
I'm sorry?
I have a question on this.
All right.
As far as the staging, I mean, Isaac, 'cause I know this is yours, staging on things, obviously for a multifamily or for a commercial, it's obvious, you traditionally do it. What are you suggesting in the end is the staging for a single-family home?
Wherever a commercial lot is, let them park their car in a commercial lot and carpool or get dropped off or Uber, I don't care. I don't want my residential streets lined with, all the trades, different cars and trucks and vehicles where people can't park in front of their house.
The workers, it's one thing, but you're also talking about staging area for trucks and everything else. Where are we finding locations for all that?
Whatever the commercial construction, let staff, whatever the commercial guys do, let them do.
Okay, it's a little more difficult than you think.
Josh, the only thing this is doing is adding single-family to the mix.
No, I understand that. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
We work these things out with the building official, the town manager, code enforcement, everyone.
I'm well aware of it. This is the only issue. Same thing I brought up before. I don't have a problem with requiring all the workers trying to come off-site in, busing in or whatever it is, walking from a different lot. It just has to be, I'm not sure exactly how we enforce some of that stuff, but some of the things are going to be a few blocks away. I don't have a problem with it. The enforcement I think is going to be a little tricky is what I'm saying.
It's a fourth step. It's a first.
We do it with the multifamily. And it's very good. When you put them on notice right from the beginning, they want to comply.
But it's different when you have a larger crew. I'm just saying enforcement when you have, because a lot of times you have a
So it should be
family
easier
home.
with a smaller crew.
No, not necessarily, because they use a lot of, they'll do subcontractors and things like that. It makes it a little more difficult. I'm just saying you're going to have an enforcement issue.
Well, I mean, let me ask you a question. When you go in to get a permit, you have to go through the process. There has to be a conversation when they're going to get their permitting for the house to say, this is, what's your plan in regards to parking? That's part of the conversation.
That's what we're doing with this ordinance.
That's what you do for multifamily.
It's requiring them to do it with single family.
They will be, but it's a different process when you're dealing with things. I'm just saying, I understand you want it as a first step, and I applaud it. I'm just telling you, the enforcement's going to be a little bit more difficult than you expect.
I think it's going to be hard in the beginning, but I think they're going to find out when they get it's noticed. When they get noticed. Okay. All right. Need a poll vote.
Oops, sorry. Councilmember Fuller.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Chakosha.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Vice Mayor Bruder.
4.
Mayor Leonard.
4.
Passes unanimously.
All right, number 14.
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading, increasing the monthly base and flow charges for sewer service.
An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands amending Section 20-9 of the Town Code, increasing the monthly base and flow charges for sewer service, providing for penalties, providing for severability, qualification, for an effective date. That's what you show.
Motion?
You try to do it in one breath.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
I challenged you on that last week. Okay, try to do it in one breath.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, poll vote, please.
This is passed.
Councilmember Yaffe.
Yeah.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Councilmember Chakosha.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Fuller.
4.
Vice Mayor Bruder.
4.
Mayor Leonard.
4.
Unanimous.
15.
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading, increasing the monthly charge for water service.
An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands amending Section 25 and 26 of the Code of Bay Harbor Islands to increase the monthly charge for water services to $4.53 per 1,000 gallons, to increase the minimum monthly service charge for each water meter to $21.08, providing for severability, providing for verification, providing for effective date.
You couldn't do that.
Have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just when I started seeing my water bill go down.
Yeah. All right, poll vote, please.
Councilmember Fuller.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Chakoshy.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Vice Mayor Bruder.
4.
Mayor Leonard.
4.
It's unanimous.
All right, 16 was deferred. 17?
17, request for approval of a proposal for professional traffic engineering services related to transportation fund analysis from Cavagiandano and Associates in the amount of $34,730. Just so everybody's clear, I know I got a few questions on this. This is not a traffic study. It's an analysis to fund the traffic transportation fund. We discussed this at the budget meeting, so that each year, when it comes around budget time, doing road resurfacing is very important, and it's usually a very easy target to cut or to reduce. This would give us the funding aside from anything else, and it would be automatic. So that's what this is, and I haven't had another proposal that was almost double the cost.
I'll move it. All right, have a motion, can I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
Yeah, the way you just described it, it sounds like, is it a statutory thing that we have to have this in order to allocate?
You need to justify whenever you're going to start a fee or, a fund, and because not every, you could do it like, we'll just divide everything equally, and this is the amount we want to come up with. This is a more of analysis on impact of a single-family home as a multifamily building, as a commercial building. So not everybody pays in at the same rate, because everybody doesn't use the roads at the same rate. So, and that kind of establishes a, reason why and how you got to this number.
This helps us bring the millage down, so.
No, absolutely, I agree. All right, we have a motion, second, poll vote, please.
Councilmember Fuller.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Salver.
4.
Councilmember Chakoshy.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Vice Mayor Bruder.
4.
Mayor Leonard.
4.
Unanimous.
All right, we did 18, 19, please.
Discussion regarding existing building height and regulations in B1 Business District. We have some information provided.
Okay. All right, anyone want to make a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll move that we go ahead and do it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if we get the public benefit here, I have no problem with moving from 65 to 75.
I'll second it, just for the...
We're running late on hours, but
I mean, you made a motion, I mean, this is a discussion.
I want to try and get the codes ready. So the one thing I would like to look at in the future is, I think one of the reasons for, the impetus for this was looking at just in the general idea that the King Concourse needs to go up a little bit for some of these things, but we want to bring in, I don't agree with the letter that we got from Mr. Miller where he talks about that we're really Class B office space. We do have the ability to draw Class A office space, but I think a lot of that is going to be dependent upon us raising the ceiling heights in general for a lot of the office space. So at this point, I want us to try and draft so we have the ability to go up to the 75 with the idea of looking forward that in the future we also require a minimum ceiling height for all these different floors.
Yeah.
We have it in the residential already.
We have it in the residential, right, I pushed it in the residential, and now I'd like to do the same thing in
I
commercial.
agree.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we put in here that there has to be a public good, a public incentive. It's not something we're not just raising.
Not a gift, it's not by any means.
Right, exactly.
I agree with Jordan.
Yeah. We have public comment. Fran Newhut.
Correct.
Yes.
Francis Newhut, 1060 King Concourse. The issue we're really having is, and it has to be modified with the developer. You can't just say, this property can have 75 feet. They've got 10 lots. And not all those lots are in the business district. You've got a gateway, single lot there. And that faces the West Island. So if you look at the new hotel, that's only 65 feet. And as I recall, the people on the other side, it's a small canal, did not want, or the community did not want 75 feet overlooking their houses. So that lot alone has to be differentiated from the 75 feet. The other thing is, and which is disturbing to me, because I hired an attorney, is when the other gateway, which is commercial, Mr. Talbert You also changed it from 65 feet to 75 feet. And we do have step-ins on the gateways, which you don't see anymore. This particular property, you allowed them to go 75 feet, and you approved his project. I have businesses in the buildings in the business district. It would be to my advantage to go from 65 feet to 75 feet. And I did have a building permit and to build on those properties. And because at that time, you only let Mr. Tauber, which I feel is spot zoning, to go 75 feet and not myself, it's not right. So to allow these people to go from 65 to 75 feet, you really have to clarify what he's going to be using with those properties. Is there appropriate parking, since he's raising it another floor? And also, what damage is he doing to the community? I don't think we have sufficient parking and people complaining about traffic all the time to accommodate these people with the type of project that they are going to do.
Thank you for your comments. Just for the record, this is for the entire business district, not any specific property. So we have a motion and a second. A discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that this is for the entire business district, which, for the sake of discussion, because we did include in the packet the example of these particular properties, 1177 Ken Concourse, and I think most of us did have a meeting, so just to let the public know that I, for one, met last week with the developer, and Ron in his office. So the purpose was to just talk about this particular legislation, but, it's hard to ignore that there is an example here. So we're not talking about approving this project. This is strictly about it. That being said, and what Mrs. Newhut just said about the gateway properties, can someone just clarify that one last little property on your waterfront lot? Because I've always been told that that's unbuildable, that nothing could go there. So it's kind of a moot point if we're talking about whether 75 feet can go there, if it won't really...
That's not B1 district.
It's a gateway. It's a
gateway with residential.
Okay, so just to clarify, so that is not on the table for 75 feet?
No.
Right.
Just also for the record, that I think the gateway properties have a larger setback from the King Concourse than a normal lot.
Right.
And I think that, it's not unbuildable. I mean, anything is possible, but I think with that layer cake stuff...
Economically difficult.
Yes, it's economically difficult, and with the setback stuff, it can't really get to 75
everything else as well on there. It's difficult for them.
Thank you.
I mean, just for the record, I also met with the developer in regards to this, but this is not about one specific property. They may be the first ones to actually utilize it, but hopefully maybe not the last. So it's interesting to discuss, and we're going to discuss it next month if it passes. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Anyone against? All right, unanimous. Number 20.
Discussion requested by Councilmember Salver on a possible residential sticker program.
No, I really didn't, actually. I think the information that the clerk provided us is very good information, and that we're actually offering the same service at zero cost to the consumer. So, I think this is a first step in the right direction. I think it's a public safety matter, and second, it's a convenience matter, and I don't even think I support it.
Let me say, I've said this to you for a while, that I support the same thing. I agree with you, especially with the new hotels coming online, because the lack of parking potentially at the hotels is going to essentially invite people just to simply, instead of using valet or paying $10, $15, $20, whatever it is, to start parking in spots that should otherwise be left for residents. So I think this is a good way to go forward.
I agree. I love
Just to stay here and vote.
So we need... So we're gonna...
Something specific.
So just move forward and ask...
Yeah, move to forward. Does anyone have...
I guess, just let's just vote to move forward to bring it back in some
I vote to move forward
some
to,
resolution or
It's
codification.
more of a full plan on how we implement it.
right,
All right, so staff can come
a
back with
program.
a program.
And keep it simple, find the simplest one.
Can I suggest, I don't know what we're doing, because that's not gonna stop people from parking in public spaces, whether they have a sticker or
Well,
not.
we would create, what I think what we would want is, at least, and tell me if you...
Clarify.
We would have certain areas, just like Surfside, where there are zones where you need a spot. We're not going to do this all over both islands, but there'll be certain areas that'll be near King Concourse, near certain areas where you would have zones where you would require a sticker.
Well, for the town attorney then, okay, town attorney,
Yes.
if they're, well, I mean, I'm assuming you can, because in Miami Beach, other areas, they have residential parking districts, and unless you have a sticker, you can't park in some of those districts, so I'm assuming we could do the same thing in Bay Harbor, that we can say on, 95th Street, you can't park on that street unless you have a resident decal.
But what Surfside does is, if you're on, obviously it doesn't work on Harding, and within a block or two of Harding, as that's when you have to have the decal.
Right.
If you go further in the Surfside, obviously you don't need it.
Right.
But I think that's the way we would look at it the same way. I mean, deep into the island, I don't think it's going to be helpful, but right near King Concourse, yes.
Let me ask you a question. How would that work hypothetically on the East Island with a building that pays into the program and they have reserved spots?
Right.
Do we have the ability to limit where they, I mean, you can't really, because they own half the parking space, so
Can I just say, the parking permit thing is not a new idea. Miami Beach is very specific. It targets an area that at night there's just not enough parking for residents. So that's what that program is all about, clearing that out so the people who are up using the restaurants in the commercial area don't backfill their spots. In Byron Avenue and Surfside, they have a traffic flow issue, the tour traffic that cuts through there to make the left turn or cut through, and that's what that's about. The other parking program that Surfside has limits it to three parking permits, and they're only allowed to use it in certain areas of the town. The volunteer, I don't know if this was a voluntary program that we were going to look at, or were you thinking about it?
Well, yes, it's 100% voluntary.
Okay.
But I think what we should do is promote it and say, okay,
We're having
a parking sticker drive, and everybody from both the East Island and West Island come in, register your vehicles, so the police and other public officials or town employees can, identify your vehicle.
So if there's a car parked near your house on a regular basis that doesn't have the decal, what happens, if anything? I mean, I'm just asking, I mean...
We would call the police and they would come and investigate it.
Right, if there's a car, I mean, we've done, I know...
Right, I mean, you don't need a decal for that, but...
A car parked in the swale, over and over and over again, I mean...
No, right, I mean, you can investigate a car that shows up frequently and doesn't seem to belong to anybody, but, I mean, obviously, if you have guests, you're gonna have, you may have a street lined with, somebody on my street the other day had a party, I mean, obviously none of these people would have had a resident decal, other than the two cars that belong to the house.
I think giving out decals and to any residents, and you have a couple little zones where you're required to have the parking, and we can work it out. There are ways to do it, and that's the only thing to do. I don't think it works throughout the rest of the island. I don't think monitoring through, when you go away from King Concourse or away from...
Right, it would be like whatever Surfside does on the interior street.
Right.
I think we should mention
Just within a
whatever
block
they
or
do,
two.
but I think all Surfside vehicles have a sticker identification of some kind.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they get free parking.
Wait and see until some of these businesses, like the hotels, are online to see if this is actually a problem here, because it seems like most of the areas around these denser businesses are near public parking. Like when the hotel opens up on East Bay Harbor, you've got the lots right across the street. I can't think of too many spots that are free and loose. I know we talked about, when the Monarch would open, that maybe people might go over the bridge and park on East Broadview.
Right.
But in the meantime, we've got the parking garage there. I think there are so many better areas. I wouldn't go over the bridge. So I think it's just probably not so likely to happen, but why don't we wait until those businesses are online and then see if it's a problem? Because this might be a waste of time.
No, I mean, look, if it's a waste of time, we'll just drop it. But right here, you can see Town of Surfside, parking permit application, and then they have Byron Avenue permit application, so.
But I can see why, because they charge for parking 24/7. So if you want to go to Flanagan's and you don't want to pay, for it's $1 an hour, then you might just want to go park in front of somebody's house.
Or Byron a block.
And then on Miami Beach, I have a friend who lives near Flamingo Park, and you have to, like, she's got a limited amount of guest stickers, guest spots, because there it's different. There, after 6, all of a sudden, the restaurant goers and the residents are starting to vie for the same spots. Here, we're kind of opposite. I don't see the same dynamics.
Well, I think this was actually kind of a dovetail to the construction site parking plan
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good complement to it, that, that all our residential automobiles have a sticker on it.
Well, just so you know, Miami Beach, they don't do stickers anymore. They have...
Little hanging things?
No, they have readers. They have readers, so, like if you're have a special zone you're supposed to be in, or if you have a citywide pass, I have a citywide pass, and they don't give you a sticker anymore. They read your license plate, and they know instantly if you're parked illegally or not.
Citywide pass.
They'll implant the barcode next.
Yeah, well, it's not a tattoo yet, but, but I'm just saying that, they're a little bit more advanced, maybe we should look at and see, so, because I would think that maybe some people may not want to show the sticker, but maybe they may be more inclined to register their car.
It's called voluntary.
Yeah, but I'm just saying...
We can do it on a temporary basis,
So, okay, Hillary, good public
Hi,
comment.
Hillary Frankel again. I'm sorry, I was on my way out and I heard this.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of ridiculous. I would not want a sticker on my car as a woman going somewhere to drive. I don't want it to say Town of Bay Harbor Islands. I don't want to be, Target. I go to very different areas and to very different parts of town and whatever, and I have a very cute little car. I don't have a status car or anything, and I purposely would not want that. Also, I think it'd be very interesting, like if I have my son's friends come, they would all have to have guest passes to park in front of our house. Be a little interesting. We'd all have to put up tow-away zone signs, because that's the way you would enforce it, and it would be very ugly to have lovely tow-away signs on all the, on the side of the roads. There's a lot more thought than that. We do have license plate readers, so they know if you're a Bay Harbor resident or not, the police. So, there wouldn't be a safety issue at that point. I think, if there's a car, you can call the police, as I've done before, and you say, there's a car in my street, it's been here for, whatever, please check it out. They come and they check it out. It's not an issue. It's a very small island, so I don't think we should have it. I think the parking is fine. And I understand what Josh was saying about the construction workers, because across the street from me, they have 2 cars. So if they have to go park at Hollover, and I have no idea how they would get back onto the island, because I don't think the Benjamin Group guy would pay to have a bus for him. But I'm just saying, and they're very nice. So, that's just my opinion on it. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Hillary.
But that is a question, because one of the things I think, Isaac, that sort of prompted this was the quantity of, construction-related vehicles or cars of workers and so forth on the streets. And if we have these staging plans that they're required to adhere to, doesn't that
kind of mitigate that problem?
Mitigate the problem? I'm just asking, I don't...
Let's see if it does. Let's test it out. I think what Kelly was saying, let's see if it does.
So you want to give it time?
Huh?
You want to give it time to see if that...
No, I'm just asking the question. I mean, if it's a voluntary, and I don't, if you all want to try it, so be it.
I think it's worth waiting. I think about, again, if it was me as well, and I agree with Hillary, I think let's wait and see. Let's wait for the hotels to come online and see if we do have an issue that comes up at that point, and then we can address it. But I think the idea is really good. I'm just not sure that the timing is right.
Okay. All right, so we're going to wait? Yep.
Revisit 6 months from now?
6 months.
Tell Siri to remind you in 6 months. Because I certainly won't remember. I can guarantee you
We'll get
that.
it when FPL puts in the polls.
Oh, don't kill it. All right, so item 21. No one remembers 21.
Oh, 21.
Yeah.
I had given you some information about some of the meetings that I've had before with the previous principal and stuff about the 70th anniversary. We had an idea, the manager had a different idea. We just need to know direction to move forward and do something
It
so we
really
can...
wasn't an idea, it was just we were talking, and I always get asked, why can't we have fireworks? And I said, well, obviously, we don't have a place to shoot them off, and it's just, it would, dangerous. Yeah. So, that's why, probably standing on the bridge at the construction site, thought about, what if we just closed the causeway for a night and shot our fireworks there and invited everybody out to view it, not to have the whole thing out there. I really think the cocktail party and the party at the community center is a good idea, but maybe you cap it off with, fireworks out at the causeway. That was really the extent of it. But
That sounds really cool.
When is our 70th anniversary?
This year.
This year?
You mean this calendar?
Yeah, we were asked by the school to wait till December to have an event because
Right.
they want to have one, they had the 60th anniversary and they wanted to
They
have
wanted
theirs at the beginning of next year for some reason. So that was the reason we waited, basically this long.
But at this point, yeah, we're running short on time.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, do we have anything in the budget for this thing?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
We did put it.
We did.
you put some money aside. Fireworks shows go anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000-$40,000.
Right.
We can ask Bal Harbor how much that costs.
Well, they went with the...
Yeah, I know.
They went with the orchestra and handouts and selfie sticks and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think we were thinking of that.
I have a couple of questions on the Causeway Island thing. Are we talking about shooting fireworks on Causeway Island, or are we talking about putting people on Causeway Island?
They would view it from the causeway, it was shot from a barge.
I have concerns that I've always had. I love Causeway Island, I think it's beautiful, and I'm grateful that we have it, but putting individuals in that center space to me just sounds like an invitation to have an accident or a lawsuit.
They would close
Like
it.
kids falling into the water or something like that.
I'm talking about all of it. It feels, and we're talking about doing it at night, and it feels like we're opening ourselves up to potential issues. I love the idea. I mean, maybe we could do something at the community center and shoot the fireworks off so you can see them from, I don't know, the field of the school or something. But I'm just afraid of putting people on Causeway Island.
How much of the budget do we have? That's what my question was. I didn't get any answers.
Did you put in like 20 grand or something?
I lost my floor in the chambers to the party.
And your chairs.
We had 10 grand, and I think that the money was appropriated. It's probably like 30-something.
So we have zero budget?
I think we have about 30-something, right?
But yeah, about 30.
35, 30-something.
You guys are talking in code to me.
35,000.
You must have not been there.
I mean, if we had, put that safety net around the perimeter, we've done that before. I mean, Bal Harbor Surfside, they do their parties on the beach, I mean, I think that if we put that yellow tape, there's actually a separation between the people in the water, it's not just
The fencing we used to put for the movie night, that kind of thing up against the edge.
Yeah, we've done, right, we could do that. I mean, listen, if we're gonna spend that kind of money and have fireworks and we're gonna close the actual, causeway for a night, it's worth investing in putting that perimeter for the night to make sure that people know this is the boundary, you don't go beyond that. And we can bring in temporary lighting. I mean, there's things that we can do, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I mean, I'm for it. I mean, it's a
when do you want, like, an actual date?
Well, that's, Marlene, you had this.
Well, I need to get back to the committee. Are you talking about both events, or are you talking about one?
Well, I mean, one.
This will be all in one. We're not...
All in one?
All in one.
Okay, then you don't have the community center portion of it. You just have the fireworks.
No, why? Why
do you
can't we do it all?
I understand.
It's two separate things. If you're gonna do the community center,
nights.
it was a totally different idea than closing the causeway and having fireworks.
But we don't need, let's do it all on the causeway. We just
Do it on the causeway.
We can put in temporary things, whatever we need there.
Yeah.
Porta potties, put everything out there.
I don't think it would work with what they've been working on.
No.
They've been working on with
Did you do one or the
displays
other?
and...
So they can do, I mean, we'll be part of that, but, I mean, I think for the town's anniversary, we should,
It's too big for the community center. I hate to say
no, it has to be outside.
Yeah.
You can't fit that, I mean, a lot of people are gonna come for this, so I
But
think
where are they all going?
they'll be outside.
Outside.
And what, we're gonna shuttle them in and
Yeah,
out?
we'll have the shuttle. right?
Shuttles, part of, we'll have to borrow shuttles from neighboring towns, but at the same time, a lot of people just walk across, that's what we're gonna...
Right, we could do that. I mean, we can figure out the logistics, right?
Yeah.
I want to stick my 2 cents in.
Yeah, yeah.
Please
Because
do.
the issue of the use of Causeway Island has come up through all the years, many times, and it's really risky putting people out there because of the traffic, because of the crowd control, and I would urge you to...
Do I have to recuse myself?
No, but I mean, we would close the causeway. There would be no traffic,
Ask
though.
Frank, you wouldn't know.
No, but
The causeway would be closed.
No, we would close, there would be no traffic. We're closing the street.
Okay.
There would be absolutely no traffic.
All right.
So,
And you would just have shuttle buses
we would have, we would have the police.
Couple shuttles for...
Yeah, we'd have some shuttles, and we would have the police.
We are sensitive to the liability.
It's, trust me, the most you're gonna spend is on the fireworks. You're gonna spend more on the fireworks, you're gonna spend on the crowd control.
I have a good idea. Why don't we just have Marlene bring back, like, 3 ideas and 3 budgets, so we can figure out.
We don't have a lot of time.
I'm running out of time. This is
That's
2
why I have 2 weeks
ideas.
to do it.
No, I think,
The date was supposed to be in December. We did not
Over the holiday?
yeah, but
We did not fix the exact date.
And before the holiday.
Can we even rent what we need during those dates? I mean, it's...
You know what, I think because it's really pushing,
January.
it's pushing the date, that maybe we divide this into maybe not specifically for the anniversary, but you have it to maybe July 4th or something like that in that area.
No. First of all, in order to get people outside, we're not doing it in July.
can't have it in July. We gotta do it in the winter
I
time.
also think that I would make an inquiry of the Department of Transportation, because that is, as Marlene points out, an evacuation route. I'm not sure that we can close to traffic the roads on Causeway, around Causeway.
I'm sure.
Just do it.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
Well, okay, so
Have it up.
let's, at least let's do the party in December, if nothing, we have
I mean, let me just ask this. Is it logistically feasible to do the party on the Causeway Island in December? Is it? No, it's not. How much time would it take to do that?
To do an actual
That would be
party.
What was the question?
I'm just asking.
Well, what's the question?
We're gonna get some December
Party on Causeway Island in December.
Oh, the party on the Causeway Island in December.
Well, what time, how much time do you need in order to do that?
I'm not sure. I mean, you're talking about what he was proposing about Causeway Island and having the fireworks and all
Yeah.
that? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't even think there's a way to
Fireworks
answer
are
that.
the easy
You gotta remember, there's one thing you gotta remember is that a lot of the stuff we're gonna have to rent certain equipment and certain things during the holiday season.
Right.
Those things aren't available. Well, I mean, most things have already been rented long in advance. So I think if we're looking at that, we're looking at January.
Okay. Could you do it by January, Ron?
In Spain.
We could probably have a fireworks display, but again, what they've been working on is,
It's different.
really, it's an indoor event. It's an indoor event.
No, we're talking about 2 separate events. Could you do what you just proposed in January and rent what you need and bring it back to us with enough time to approve it? Is this, you brought it up, so.
One event. I think we're on one event. One event, January, Causeway, and whatever you guys can plan, and...
I really feel like that would be,
Do you want
No,
to do
not hard. I mean,
fireworks?
it
Is
just-
that the thing? The fireworks is the
it
problem?
was just, it's not that, it's just everything that went into,
It's fine, we just need a decision, whatever it is, we're gonna work on
What
it,
if
get it
we
done.
walk everybody up to the roof of the garage to watch a fireworks display that's visible from afar?
We can sit on top of a caddy.
we'll plan something for the Causeway.
The Causeway, so you're gonna bring this back at the next meeting with all the logistics and we'll get this.
And we have to decide, because that's it. I mean, November, we've got no December meeting.
No, I'm saying, I think we need to,
Can we pick, she needs a date.
Ron?
Well, if it's gonna
you
be
have
in
a date in mind?
January, we have to contact people and find out when they're available, so we're gonna have to, we're
How
gonna
about
have
this,
to figure it out.
so next,
She's trying to find out what dates are available.
okay, so next meeting, you're come up with the logistics, the date, bring it to us for approval, and so next meeting, budget, so we're gonna have that for next meeting, all the logistics, everything. Right. It's on, it's all in wrong. All right. Thank you so much.
We'll be handing out sparklers.
No. All right, we have a motion second. All right, we're adjourned at 10:35.
Right on the money.
Except the garages other than the one next to the...
How did you get it?
That's what I want to do.